Hang Xingwang, a corporate slave, unlocks the ultimate freedom system. The more he indulges, the richer he gets. From worker to boss, he crushes simps and rises as a godly tycoon. Our story starts with Hang Xingwang trying to get 2 days off work to deal with a family emergency from his boss, who could not care less if he tried. He even promised to make up for any work he might miss when he returned. He just really needed a few days. Without even looking up from his phone, the manager asserted that their department was short-staffed. Except for special circumstances like funerals, no other leave would be approved. The cause of the manager's distraction was the pretty lady dancing on a live stream. That's right, he's one of those coomers. Not an ordinary one, mind you. The manager was a high roller. The type who donates tons of cash to his favorite streams. As soon as he sent that rocket ship, the live stream burst with energy as the music and dancing got more intense. Meanwhile, Xingwang was still pouring his heart out for his sick mother, who needed someone to take care of her. The cruel manager suggested that Xingwang's father should take care of the mom. If that was not possible, then nearby relatives should take the role. If Xingwang's mother was in critical condition, the request might have been approved. Just then, the pretty lady on the stream thanked her big brother, the manager, for sending a rocket worth a lot of money. Seeing this bum of a boss who does not care about the well-being of his employees, Xingwang's anger rose. With his condescending tone, the manager insisted that Xingwang should make a few sacrifices to climb the ladder instead of making excuses to leave. In their new media industry, timeliness is crucial. If someone breaks the news first, their department's performance will suffer. So, Xingwang proposed working from home while staying in touch the whole time. But the manager was too unforgiving for that. He was tired of persuading Xingwang and just outright told him to quit. All he had to do was settle up with finance and get out. Unfortunately, Xingwang graduated from a third-tier university, and the company had just taken him in due to demand. Most of their applicants were from first-tier universities, and he had always been expendable. Trends won't wait, and neither will his job. The manager strongly advised Xingwang to think it over before he insisted on leaving again. So, that's precisely what he did. Xingwang lit up a cig and thought. His deliberation was interrupted by the blaring noise of his phone's ringtone. On the other end of the line was his dad asking if he could come back home. You see, Mom's medical fees haven't been settled yet. The hospital had been flexible enough, but any more delays would be a problem. Dad had been making excuses for a few days now, and the hospital was putting its foot down for the payment. They could either pay up or be discharged. This understandably put Dad in a very tough position. On the other end of the line, Xingwang was starting to catch the vibe that his dad was hiding some serious financial problems back home. He asserted that he would be back in a few days and would help with the medical fees. But being a traditional man, Dad assured him that he had already borrowed some funds from friends and relatives along with the medical insurance to cover everything. Still, Xingwang wanted to cover the shortfall, as he didn't want his family to owe anything to relatives. As the eldest son, he wanted to handle this financial mess. However, Dad did not want to burden his newly graduated son with working in a city with a high cost of living. He just wanted Xingwang to live for himself and not worry about them back home. Well, he's been working for a year and a half with a monthly salary of $5,000. He shares a bunk bed with a roommate and lives a frugal life. Despite that, he only managed to save $50,000. At least this much should be enough to cover the debts from his mom's medical expenses for a while. Hang Xingwang had lived for over 20 years without stepping out of line. Today, he was going to change that. He steeled his resolve to resign from a crappy, inhumane company and take his talents elsewhere. So, his next destination was the Human Resources Department. 20 minutes later, his status had been officially changed to unemployed. He did it out of his own will, but not having a job anymore painted a bitter smile on his face. In this current job market and economic climate, quitting his livelihood without another job lined up was reckless, to say the least. But he was bailed out upon unlocking the ultimate freedom system for deciding against his ancestors' wishes. Quitting his job rewarded Xingwang with 88,088 yuan, or approximately $12,000. Xingwang stopped in his tracks. He was just minding his own business when the golden text prompt appeared in front of him. At first, he thought someone was playing a video on full blast nearby, to the point of buzzing inside his brain. But the interface in front of him explained that he should check his reward money and indulge freely. The more he spends, the more money he can get. The rich get richer. With his shaking hands, he carefully took his phone out of his pocket. The notification read that 88,888 wans had been successfully deposited into his account. At first, the skeptic in him wondered if this was some type of new age scam or something. But the text message was official, and the money in his account had actually increased. With 138,888 yuan to his name, his painstakingly saved-up funds had ballooned. The system assured its master not to doubt his awakening. All he had to do now was start living it up to his heart's content. Xingwang would never have believed it if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. After checking his account, he actually found the mentioned amount of money in his account. There was no doubt now, he had really awakened the system. Now all that was left was to figure out how everything worked and see if this system of absolute freedom could really help him. It was necessary to test everything in practice. His thoughts were interrupted by a woman's voice asking what he was thinking about. The girl who called out to him was Howen, a blogger with 8 million fans. She wanted to know if he'd prepared her stream schedule. Howen had 8 million fans for a reason. Her beauty and charm had tremendous power. At the sight of her, Xingwang's thoughts drifted away, and he didn't even hear what she said. Noticing his confusion, Howen asked if he finally saw his older sister as a girl. Xingwang took it as a joke as usual. Throwing herself at him, Howen said that she needed more operational resources, because recently, the highest-paying fans had been paying less. Before that, Xingwang had always managed her streaming broadcasts. Online, she was known as the most attractive dance goddess. In real life, however, she was quite friendly and not arrogant at all. Also, her flaw as well as her strength was that she liked to joke around. That had been the case before, but now he had quit and wasn't responsible for it. He informed Howen that the company would find her another manager. The girl worriedly asked why he had made such a sudden decision. Xingwang sympathized with her to some extent. Although she didn't look down on others, she treated him even better because he was her operator in the company. He was also the easiest person for her to work with. But now their roads were parting, and there was nothing to add here. In our hero's opinion, he finally became fully aware of reality, but Howen did not plan to give up so easily. Using her witchy, sorry girl charms, she said she preferred to work with him and wouldn't trust anyone else. Xingwang's sanity was gone in an instant. He realized that he was charmed, but he wasn't going to lose so easily. At the same time, Howen was trying to understand why Xingwang was acting so strange today. Usually, he always played along with her, but not this time. In a saddened voice, she asked if he really wanted to leave her. This might have worked on the old Xingwang, but now our hero was a completely different person. He wasn't going to be fooled by her pretense. Xingwang replied that he wanted to take a long vacation. Howen started trying to seduce him with her charm again, and to be honest, she was quite good at it. Xingwang was having a hard time. However, it was already a foregone conclusion. He had a system with which he could become a billionaire. With that kind of money, he could get 10 of these beauties. After finally coming to his senses, Xingwang replied that Howen should fix her nose makeup, as it looked a little crooked to him. Howen, who had never heard such a thing in her life, was shocked. It seemed impossible to her, but she rushed to check it out in person anyway. Eventually, Howen began to think that Xingwang's words were true, and her makeup on her nose was indeed a bit crooked. The broadcast was going to start soon, so there was very little time to fix this. At the same time, a system notification appeared in front of Xingwang in which the system expressed its admiration for his determination. He refused to be a chained dog and was able to express his sincere feelings. For this, he received a reward of 23,000 wen. Xingwang was once again shocked. He had done such a small thing and already received such a large sum. What could he get if he made his former boss crawl on his knees? But it was too early to think about that for now. Just like last time, he received the money into his account again. His balance was already 162,000 yen. Now Xingwang understood what absolute freedom meant. Now he could no longer be afraid to be himself. He could do whatever he wanted and get paid for it. What could be better than that? That day another devil was born on Earth. The beauty actually thanked him for pointing out her crooked nose. She also accepted that he was going his own way now, but was looking forward to a chance to work together in the future. This gorgeous woman actually wished him the best for his career instead of acting furious for being exposed. She was way too calm. Xingwang wondered if she was faking this nice act, or if she was just like this naturally. In addition, she even invited him to a farewell dinner treat for mentoring her on the technical side of things for so long. Howen even offered to help him look for a new job with her connections to some industry bosses, believing in his top-notch skills. With the time they spent together before, she knew that he did not come from the best university. Maybe she was not conniving at all. Perhaps she was actually a decent human being. So, Xingwang reversed the invitation and offered to treat her to dinner instead. She was naturally worried that he would be struggling financially, though. He laughed and used his departure as an excuse to stop being stingy. They might work together in the future, so this dinner could be considered an advance thanks. She smiled as she realized that he was already leaving when they hadn't had the chance to know each other at all. Since Xingwang had already packed up and was ready to head out, dinner after work should be perfect. Xingwang exited the building with a livelier pep in his step. He was born anew and was ready to experience the world on a whole new level. Before, if he could walk, he would never take the bus or subway. If he could take public transport, he would never take a taxi. If he worked overtime until 11, he would share a ride with someone. But looking at his bank account and the endless possibilities that had opened up to him, that might start to change. Even sharing rides in the dead of the night was a luxury for him in his daily life. So today, he would take the most expensive ride on the app and splurge properly on what he could not afford before. It did not take too long for a clean-looking silver car to pull up near him. The driver was personable and even wore a suit. This is what you get if you order a DD Premium ride. Xingwang's system quietly rewarded him with another 50,000 for being generous and taking a ride without looking at the price. Looking at the car, its sleek lines and the smooth sound of its engine could make anyone's blood boil with excitement. He remembered waiting for other people to share a ride with him, sometimes until after midnight, just to save a few bucks. His current situation was light years away from that. He had truly made a gigantic leap in social class. From today onwards, he would be a different person. The driver smiled and politely directed him to get in the car. His destination was confirmed to be the Baoxing Road intersection, a place called Laoxiang Jianbing Pancake Shop, to be specific. Upon confirmation, the driver stepped on the gas and drove to the location. In the back seat, Xingwang gladly enjoyed the feeling of acceleration in an expensive vehicle. Smoke billowed from the tailpipe, and the driver showed off his impressive driving skills. With their speed, it did not take too long to reach Xingwang's destination. He got out of the car with a newfound sense of self, confident to take on anything now that he had unlocked a cheat code for reality and capitalism. The elderly lady working in the pancake shop practically knew him at this point. She also knew that his order was usually a jianbing without egg and sausage. But this time was different. He wanted the egg. In fact, he could afford all the eggs he wanted, but 2 should be enough. Also, he wanted 2 pure meat sausages, none of those lousy starch sausages. The people around him were impressed by his lavish order. When Xingwang had a monthly salary of 5,000, he spent 800 on rent and limited himself to 20 yuan a day on food. An 8 yuan plain jianbing saved him from starvation multiple times, but he never dared to add eggs. Today, he could go all out and splurge on a meal. Just lining up to eat something worth 15 yuan was already a level up for Xingwang. He wanted the people around him to feel envy and jealousy as soon as they saw his 2 eggs and pure meat sausage. That's precisely what happened. The ladies blushed, and the dudes wondered when they could flex their eggs and sausages like this. This little stunt of making a significant leap from his impoverished living standards earned him another 20K from the system. Walking away from the stall while munching on good food, Xingwang enjoyed the beautiful afternoon with a satisfied smile on his face. He promised himself that he would add 5 eggs to his order next time. Back in his days as a student, Xingwang was so broke that he could not afford any kind of entertainment. After he got into the workforce, not only did he not have enough money, but he also lost all his time. These days, he doesn't even know what normal people do to be entertained. Walking aimlessly, he found himself near a familiar building. Suddenly, an idea struck inside his head like Jimmy Neutron having a brain blast. How could he forget about it? Now that he had plenty of money, he could live like one of those rich pricks who shop at the mall without looking at price tags. He still needed to treat Howen to dinner tonight, and as far as he knew, high-end restaurants pay close attention to dress codes these days. His current wardrobe just won't cut it. The quality of his clothes is not nearly up to rich society's standards. So he entered the shopping mall and resolved to do what he had never gotten to do. Amidst the crowd, he looked at the shops and their storefronts in boundless confusion. He had unknowingly entered one of those massive malls filled with the scent of luxury. Every store had brand names written in English, and he could barely understand what he was looking at. Xingwang came into this place with the intention of splurging cash, and now he didn't even know where or how to start. He immediately tried to find a familiar brand, something like Adidas, but those kinds of stores weren't up to this mall's standards. Xingwang stopped himself from looking around cluelessly like a bumpkin. Despite his cheat code in life, he was still looking at things small-mindedly when he could just go all out without consequences. He was attracted by the premium-looking storefront of Louis Vuitton. The attendants inside the store took note of the new customer and pushed the task of assisting Xingwang to one another. The senior attendant clocked Xingwang as soon as he entered the establishment. Her rich experience in customer service led her to assess the young man by his current getup. His hair wasn't professionally styled. He was wearing a bunch of junk. His phone was an old model, and most of his clothes were discount goods from street stalls. In other words, a broke boy had been spotted. The attendants had a non-verbal agreement to not assist someone who would never be able to afford what they were selling. Hang Xingwang slowly caught up to this fact when he entered, and not a single attendant attended to him. Sure, he admitted that he might look like a broke boy right now, but their snobbishness was too obvious and nefarious. So he spoke up and explained that he was tired from work and didn't have time to browse. He just wanted to pick something worth 150,000 and be done with his shopping. But since these pompous salesladies wanted to waste his time by acting high and mighty, maybe he would just go to the Hermes store next door. Hearing his threat, the attendants were alarmed. They might have foolishly misread a customer. So, every single attendant quickly flocked towards the young man. They showered him with pretty smiles while asking what he was looking for. Some even offered to sit him down and have some tea while browsing through the store's collection. This was one of the first instances of Xingwang learning that money really does talk, and it speaks volumes. By the time he was done shopping, he was already dripped out with flashy new clothes. His aura had undoubtedly gone up. He also learned that the service for wealthy people in luxury stores was undoubtedly first class. You don't even have to carry your bags, someone carries them for you. The girl assigned to carry his stuff cheerfully and politely invited him to participate in a jewelry appreciation event at the end of the month, and he promised to come if he had time. She also proposed that they could just have his bags delivered to his residence for convenience. He refused to do it that way as he preferred to do things himself. With that said, he took the bags from the lady. With a refreshing smile and brilliant energy, the lady wished him well respectfully. On the way out of the shopping mall, Xingwang overheard some ladies talking about not being able to afford staple luxury brands like LV and Hermes. He looked at his wardrobe pickups and smiled. Yesterday, he wouldn't even dream of buying something so expensive. Today, he couldn't wait to spend more. The system watched him spend 3 years' worth of his previous salary in one go. This was his first big sum achievement, and it came with a 660,000 wen reward, or approximately $90,000. Indeed, spending more leads to earning even more. From being a penny-pinching broke boy, he was now only a little bit away from becoming a millionaire. All he needed to do was work hard and live it up luxuriously. Xingwang now could not be stingy, and if before he would choose some cheap fast food, now he chose the most expensive restaurant in the city, Lingwei Western. For such a restaurant, our hero of course dressed appropriately. His appearance, probably for the first time in his life, was bright and luxurious. At the entrance, he was immediately met by a beautiful waitress, and she offered to guide the Honorable Mr. Hang to the reserved private room. Xingwang arrived a little early, and Haowen was still busy with her work, so he was going to wait for her at the entrance. But the waitress assured him that there was no need for important guests like him to wait here. The private room was separated from the main hall, and he could relax there, have a couple of desserts while he waited for his friends. Such a reception in such a prestigious place was quite unusual for Xingwang. Indeed, clothes make the man. When he entered this private room, the desserts and tea were already on the table and he could help himself. If he wanted anything else, he could just ring the bell. The waitress wasn't going to disturb our hero's rest and he could enjoy his meal. The view from the private room was really breathtaking. The evening city was especially good. This was the first time Xingwang had seen the city from the height of the 40th floor. In today's day, our hero had firmly convinced in practice that as long as one had money, he could enjoy the best service. And what's more, as long as you have money, you can stand at heights inaccessible to others. Now all those long-held fantasies and dreams that Xingwang had could finally come true. But before all that, he hurriedly transferred some money home, a little so as not to shock his father. It was only 100,000. If his father had any questions about the origin of the money, our hero could simply justify that it was savings from a part-time job. It would be believable, and his father and mother wouldn't be too shocked. While our hero was relaxing at the restaurant, Haowen was sweating and working hard. She was performing custom dances, and the donations were pouring in, giving her no time for rest. There's a reason her broadcasts got so many views, you know what I mean. Xingwang forwarded the location and the name of the restaurant. But of course she didn't read the messages because she was live streaming. Fans sent her one donation rocket after another, and Haowen was grateful to them all. But it was time to wrap it up. That was all for today, and viewers will be able to see the follow-up tomorrow. Finally, this madness was over, and a tired and sweaty Haowen could sit down and rest. Unfortunately, such a desirable moment of rest for her did not last long. Almost immediately, her friends came over. They wanted to go out to dinner together. Haowen had to disappoint them, as she had her own plans for the evening. One of her friends immediately suspected that something was going on, and Haowen was keeping a very important detail from her. Who was she going to have dinner with? Did she have a serious rich fan? Haowen had to disappoint her. She should stop talking nonsense. She already knows this guy herself. It's just Xingwang. The friends were surprised that Haowen still thinks about this loser and agreed to meet him after he left work. She definitely has feelings for him, no matter how hard she tries to hide it. Haowen again advised them to stop talking nonsense. She's just grateful to him that Xingwang helped her a lot when he was an operator at the company. Now that he's left the company, it's just a farewell dinner. Besides, he'll treat. Hearing the key word that he would treat, the girls also wanted to go with her. It wasn't a date, so Haowen didn't mind. Besides, they would probably eat something simple, and it wouldn't be too expensive for Xingwang. But if the friends wanted something expensive, they would pay for it separately. The blonde-haired friend was fine with it. She had a long day and was willing to treat herself a little. Xinhuo wanted to go too, and didn't want to take advantage of others at all. At least that's what she said. In fact, Xinhuo just knew that Xingwang was so stingy that he didn't even add an egg to his pancake. She was very curious about what kind of fancy restaurant he could take them to for dinner. Of course, Howen couldn't read the minds of her greedy friends, so she suggested they meet in the parking lot after she took off her makeup. Soon they walked down to the parking lot together, where Howen's brand new car was parked. That evening, they were lucky and no one blocked it. Jen Qingqing had to admit that it had become difficult for her to get advertising contracts recently, and she didn't know when she would be able to buy a similar car. Howen suggested that she try to become a dance streamer, but Jen Qingqing knew herself too well. It was too tiring for her. After all, she didn't have the stamina like Howen to dance from morning to night. Instead, her strategy was to wait for good big brother to propose to her and pull her out of this damned industry. Xinhuo immediately brought her down to earth. Zhan Qingqing wanted too much. In their industry, it's good enough not to get taken advantage of by big brothers. Yet she dreams of someone from them to save her. Zhan Qingqing just wanted to dream a little. Xinhuo had nothing against it. She could dream all she wanted. But could she be so naive and believe that Howen had bought herself a fancy car just by dancing on the streaming service? Xinhuo was sure that she must have slept with many big brothers. Otherwise, she definitely wouldn't have become a top 1 company star. Definitely not just because of her cute look. Finally, Xinhuo came to her senses after all her dirty guesses and asked where they were going to have dinner. As soon as Howen pulled out her phone to check, she just froze with a strangely startled expression on her face. It was smugly remarked by Xinhuo, certain that the place was so shabby that even her love-struck friend was shocked. But she was wrong. The place they were invited to was called Lingwai, and there was a restaurant with the same name. It was located in the Jingwu building. This restaurant was known for being a super famous and popular restaurant with 3 Michelin stars. Even the most modest dinner in such a place cost over 3,000 per person. But even that wasn't the main problem. It was the fact that it was very difficult to get a reservation because of the popularity of the place. Jen Qingqing found it hard to imagine that a cheapskate like Hang could invite them there. Could it be that he had secretly got a promotion, and that was why he quit his previous job? Xinhuo assumed it was just some cheap restaurant in the same building. Some people like to post locations near famous places to show off and confuse others. Howen didn't believe her jealous friend and advised her not to be so quick to judge. As far as she knows, Hang is not that kind of vain person. But Xinhuo was still sure that Hang would soon embarrass himself and Howen would change her wrong opinion of him. Finally, they got into the car and agreed to go and see. Through the night city with no traffic, they drove quite fast. Jen Qingqing had to admit that Howen's new car was stable and had strong shock resistance, what her old car could not boast of at all. Xinhuo was more restrained in her reaction. She even advised her friend to take advantage of her opportunities. She is a beauty blogger, and there are many rich people on her live streams from whom she could get some resources. All she needs to do is lower her collar a little and use soft voice. Then the gifts will fall on her. No matter it's dance or beauty, all she has to do is lower her standards a little, and the rich fans will send rockets of gifts. Then Zhan Qingqing won't have to worry about getting advertising contracts. However, Zhan Qingqing herself did not like such offers at all. Besides, most of her viewers were girls. Xinhuo was not going to insist. If it suits her and she can earn money without resorting to such methods, then let it stay that way. It's not like anyone wants to resort to such a thing for nothing. Xinhuo also wished that some rich guy would actually want to marry her, and then she would be ready to become a full-time housewife with no regrets. The only thing that was bothering her now was that Howen was silent. Was she really looking down on all of them? But as soon as she thought about it, Howen spoke up. She thought a little differently. If a couple is together only because of momentary attraction, and the girl is not financially independent, then she will be in a vulnerable position in the family, and will have no right to speak. And then the way the rich guy lives with her will be the same way he might live with someone else. So as long as a man has money, he will always have young girls around him that he can change at will. This was not a situation Howen wanted to be in. To Xinhuo, her words did not sound very honest. She wished Howen would stop pretending to be all high and mighty. After all, she actually dances more provocatively than anyone else on her live streams. In reality, Howen just wanted to be self-reliant and earn as much as she could while she still could. A man might betray her, but money never. Finally, they arrived at the parking lot beneath the restaurant, and Howen stepped forward confidently. But Zhan Qingqing hurriedly stopped her, eager to double-check the location of the place Hang had invited them to once again. Even with Howen's high monthly income, she probably wouldn't want to spend a lot of money here. What if Hang just gave her the wrong address? Xinhuo agreed with her completely. It was embarrassing for her to walk into a high-end restaurant and then shamefully leave because they didn't have a reservation there. What if one of their viewers recognized them and posted a video of it online and then they would lose followers? So Howen decided to call Hang to find out for sure. But all she got was a dial tone and Hang didn't answer. Xinhuo smugly mentally laughed at her, certain that it was solely Howen's fault that she was hanging out with show-offs and getting dragged into this. Howen, on the other hand, thought Hang was just busy and therefore not responding. Shinuo put on her good friend mask again and suggested that something might have happened. In any case, Hang wouldn't mess with her on purpose, right? So it's still worth going upstairs and checking since they're here. Shinuo was just curious to see this top 1 restaurant and how the story with Hang would end up. Howen invited her friends to take the elevator, thinking that Lingwei is a very expensive restaurant. Even though she can afford it, Hang with his small salary probably can't. There's a reason he's usually so stingy. Lingwei would be too much of a waste for him. What if he was just kidding? In that case, she would have to pay for the entire dinner herself. Approaching the entrance, Howen hesitantly looked around from around the corner. When she didn't see him in the main hall, she started to panic. Why wasn't Hang answering the phone? She tried again and again, but nothing changed. Suddenly, a waitress approached them from behind and asked if they had a reservation. Howen wasn't sure what to answer, but Zinuo answered instead, confidently saying yes. Now Howen had no choice but to say that the reservation should be under the name Hang Xingwang. Shinuo continued to gloat, knowing that the salary of an operator in his company was only 5,000. One dinner at this restaurant could cost him 3 months' salary, and she just couldn't wait to see how Howen would bear the blow of the harsh reality. But suddenly, against all her expectations, the waitress invited them to follow her, because Mr. Hang had been waiting for them for a long time. Shinuo was simply speechless. Is this really real? As the waitress led them to the private room where Hang was waiting for them, Shinuo couldn't stop envying how lucky Howen was. The company gives her resources, and she firmly occupied the position of top 1, leaving everyone far behind. Shinuo herself had to settle for second position, but as if that wasn't enough, there are all kinds of suckers trying to gain Howen's attention. Even a stingy loser like Xingwang was ready to spend so much for her. Shinuo was sure that in the end he would end up with no money and no girl, but she wished she could be in Howen's shoes. But then Zinuo would definitely not give even a chance to someone who pretended to be rich. The waitress led them to the elevator and sent them to the highest floor. Now John Qingqing was really starting to worry that someone else with the same name as Hang might be waiting for them there. It was even hard for her to imagine how embarrassing it would be if they misunderstood everything. As far as she knows, this elevator here is strictly for the VIP clients, to make it convenient for them to get to the top floor with private rooms. It's just that the price of booking such a room goes up to 10,000 per person for the evening. Now Jinuo was sure that someone else with the same name was waiting for them there. In her opinion, this was too much for Xingwang. He would have to spend his entire 3-month salary, and that's if he didn't eat or drink anything. Even if it was actually him, she was curious to see how he would handle himself when he saw that the 3 of them had come. One thing she had to admit though, this Xingwang is really smart since he picked the moment when someone with the same name reserved a seat in the restaurant and invited them here just to show off. But this whole show would soon be over, and she would bring him out. Finally, they arrived at the 40th floor, where a nice waitress who looked much better than the 3 of them invited them to come through and be seated. The only thing that bothered Howen was that Xingwang was not to be seen here. But Qingqing wasn't upset about it and immediately started taking pictures in such a luxurious restaurant. It was not allowed to take pictures in the lobby, but it was still possible to take pictures in the private rooms. Qingqing decided that whether they dined here tonight or not, if she managed to take good pictures, it would be considered a good night as if she had dined here. Shinuo did not share her enthusiasm and was in no hurry to join her. Qingqing was going to publish these photos later. After all, no one would know under what circumstances she had gotten here anyway. Shinuo continued to be not satisfied. She still thought that Xingwang was just a rascal who invited guests and didn't come himself, just like she expected. Qingqing was having a more pleasant time, recognizing that she had never dined at such an expensive restaurant in her life, and realizing that she might not get another chance, used it to the fullest to take more photos. Shinuo finally ran out of patience and demanded Howen to tell her what Xingwang had said to her. She didn't want her friend to make a fool of herself if it turned out to be a misunderstanding. Howen was also beginning to doubt that an ordinary office worker could afford to dine at such a place. She was about to leave when a waitress came to one door and started to wake Mr. Heng, who was sleeping there. Shinuo gloated that she knew it and now Howen would be humiliated. But Xingwang dashed all her hopes. He had just waited so long for them that he fell asleep, and when he woke up he saw 4 or 5 missed calls. And now he hoped they hadn't at least waited too long for him. He immediately told the waitress to start serving. To the girls, his change in appearance from a poor guy in a hoodie to a rich guy in designer clothes was startling, especially for Howen, who didn't even know what to say. Qingqing immediately estimated that his branded clothes cost quite a lot. The jacket alone cost over $5,500. Shinuo was just flaming with envy and couldn't understand how this guy could be so rich in reality. Had he inherited money from a rich relative? It made her angry that such a loser was so lucky, and it made her even angrier that he was so skillful at hiding it all. Xingwang greeted Howen first and only then her friends. Qingqing he recognized immediately, but Zinuo didn't and she had to introduce herself. Of course she tried to use all her charms. But our hero was not impressed at all. He remembered her video with beauty filters and was surprised that in reality, she was so different. Shinuo tried to justify that it was because of her light makeup today. But inside she was just furious at her defeat. Of course no one saw this, and Howen nonchalantly explained that she took her co-workers with her after work. But if he minded, they could leave. Just at that moment, a bunch of waiters came in with lots of dishes. Of course the most expensive ones in the restaurant, which quite surprised Howen. Looking at the expensive wine, she realized that at this rate, even she wouldn't be able to afford to pay for such a dinner. She still couldn't understand what Xingwang was doing and why she was wasting money like this. Qingqing honestly shared that she envied him because he must have inherited some family business and therefore could afford to quit his job and have such a fancy dinner. But Howen wasn't sure and couldn't confirm her friend's guess. Looking at the feast in front of him, Hang Xingwang was deeply disappointed. He did not have an appetite for this yuppie food. It looked nice, but it was too uppity for him. Excited, Zhan Qingqing asked for permission to take the first photo of the feast. Xingwang graciously let her do her thing. Being a content creator herself, Qingqing was quite a good photographer, and the pics were fire. Feeling sketched out by the situation, Q Shinuo asked Howen what was really going on and why this guy had so much cash. Well, Howen and Xingwang were never really close. Apart from work-related stuff, they had never interacted. He was responsible for a few effective marketing campaigns though. She even recalled seeing him live modestly. But maybe he was just a low-profile, pragmatic, and rich second-generation son of some conglomerate. He probably did not want a girl to pay for the meal, so he decided to reveal his real wealth. Still unsatisfied with the delectable food on the table, Xingwang called the waitress to request something more down-to-earth and filling. Qingqing enthusiastically backed him up, agreeing that expensive meals aren't even filling. They just look good for photos if you're a socialite. The waitress suggested slow-cooked black truffle beef ribs, pineapple monkfish liver, and many more exotic cuisines with names that were far too complicated. Just hearing these names was killing his appetite. He just wanted something cooked in intense heat. Some imported crab, imported beef, and lamb cut into chunks should do. The girls had never seen someone act and order like this in a high-end restaurant. Annoyed, Jinuo interjected that they should not have come to a French restaurant if he wanted comfort food. She was starting to think that he did not come from a rich family but had recently acquired wealth as a nouveau riche instead. Xingwang continued adding to his order, tacking on grilled kidneys and barbecue skewers like he was in a street stall. The waitress had to hurriedly apologize as she insisted that they only serve the restaurant's set menu items. That's when Xingwang requested the manager, as this was above the waitress's pay grade. In her experience working in this respected establishment, she had never seen someone so brazen. A few moments later, a pudgy man wearing glasses came in and introduced himself as the manager of the place. Just like the waitress, he apologized as they wanted to uphold their name as a French restaurant. Seeing the young man get denied made Shinuo very happy, even calling Xingwang a bumpkin in her head. He noticed her little smirk and took note of it. Still, he really wanted to have a barbecue in a French restaurant. So he offered 300,000 for the meal and promised an extra 50,000 as a tip if his requests were met. Hearing the massive figure he had just dropped, the manager had to make a judgment call. Even the girls were slack-jawed after hearing such a ridiculous offer. They watched as the dignified manager turned into an obedient puppy while asking the VIP for any more requests. Seeing the manager cave to his demands, Xingwang promised to gift him some kidney sashimi to commemorate his lost defiance. Looking dependable as hell, the manager promised to instruct the kitchen right away. The system saw him act thick-skinned, disregarding dining etiquette and making the restaurant change its rules, and it granted him 500,000 as a reward. This system was really proving itself handy when it came to saving internal conflicts. He told the girls that dining should be about relaxation and getting full, so they should do it right. Qingqing joyfully agreed. She was looking forward to uploading pics of street food served in a high-end restaurant, expecting more clout. After a few minutes, the servers entered the private dining room and slowly carted in the orders. Although it was supposed to be normal street food, the restaurant managed to make it look delectable. Seeing this impressive spread of meals, Qingqing became certain that money talks no matter what the situation was. She was just itching to let everyone know that she had barbecue skewers at a 3-star Michelin French restaurant on the top floor of the tallest building in Beijing. Finally, the VIP and the ladies could start their dinner. By the time they were done, sticks were neatly stacked on the table, and the skewered meats had nearly been devoured fully. Xingwang gracefully wiped his mouth and excused himself, saying he needed to go to the restroom. As soon as he got up from the table, the ladies started speculating about how wealthy he really was. His outfit alone must have cost at least $22,000. Qingqing proposed the idea that he just worked at the production company because he wanted to get close to Howen, but she thought he was just trying to be low-key and work a normal job, and now that he's out, he doesn't care anymore. Normal people could not help but be envious that some rich second-generation heirs get to experience life however they want. Morbidly curious, Sinuo asked Haowen if she was moved by the spending and if she liked Xingwang. If you asked Qingqing, she would definitely say yes. Being lavishly treated and spent on just for dinner would make her heart flutter. Sinuo reckoned that Haowen must have already known about Xingwang and was keeping him to herself, that she wasn't interested in her top donor because she had her sights on a bigger fish all along. But she swore that she had no idea. They were not even close when they worked together. They never had any private interactions, and she had no idea that he was this loaded before tonight. All she knew was that Xingwang had a great work ethic. He was ambitious and hardworking, often doing overtime. Sinuo accepted that Haowen really had no idea. She also raised the possibility that all these flexes were fake. Many people pretend to be wealthy to impress girls. Some livestream top donors do the same. These people would even go as far as going into debt to spoil their girls. If that were really the case, Qingqing would have liked to commend Xingwang for his acting skills. This witch, Sinuo, was suddenly struck with the idea of verifying whether the boy was really wealthy or just faking it. Haowen quickly shot down the intrusive idea. That boy treated them to an interesting and expensive dinner. The least they could do was to stop doubting whether he was a fraud. Sinuo explained that Haowen was underestimating her value to a man. A normal person could gain a lot by being connected to a popular streamer these days. That's how manipulative people operate. They charm you in, make you feel special, and once you're emotionally invested, they show their true colors, and it would be too late to get out at that point. Haowen had no intention of pursuing anything romantic with a work friend just because she was taken out for dinner, though. Sinuo finally put her foot down and told the other ladies to just follow her lead as they verified his status. The party of 4 wrapped up dinner and headed for the parking area. If Xingwang was really faking his wealth, then Haowen would gladly cover all expenses tonight. She didn't want a hardworking man to go down such a deceptive path. She genuinely believed that there was nothing wrong with an honest and simple life. Qingqing broke the silence by asking Xingwang if he had a girlfriend. He honestly confessed that he had been single since birth, eternally alone in the romance department. She was surprised by that answer. She must have been expecting him to answer like a player. But Xingwang was so focused on his career that he hardly had time to think about dating. Being a corporate slave was demanding enough, but at least he got paid. If you add being a lovesick fool to that, it would be too much trouble. Just thinking about taking care of another person while he could barely take care of himself was horrifying. Since it was only 5 minutes past 9, Sinuo proposed that they continue the evening at a bar. She even offered to treat them to a few drinks. She was a regular at Fugue Bar, a bar full of internet celebrities where they could network. Not seeing any harm in it, Xingwang agreed. And so, they drove to their next destination. Xingwang looked at Haowen by his side and could not help but think. Now that he had some capital to invest, maybe he could open his own media company in the future. His background in running operations might help in that field. Plus, he could get acquainted with internet celebrities. In doing so, he could be the next titan of the industry, with all kinds of assets in his hands. Upon arriving at the bar, Sinuo gave them a heads up that she could only afford about 2 drinks for each person. That was not a problem for the party at all. This night was just about going out and having fun. In the parking lot, all kinds of luxury vehicles were lined up. Their drivers were naturally wealthy. Meanwhile, Xingwang was just excited to enter the famous Fugue Bar he had heard so much about. As soon as they got inside, they were greeted by the blaring music performed by a live DJ, hyping up the crowd. In booths and on the dance floor, there was all kinds of touching that was not very YouTube-friendly. The party of 4 settled in one of the empty booths to have their drinks. Sinuo ordered a margarita and urged everyone to get whatever they wanted. Qingqing got the pink lady, and Haowen ordered a non-alcoholic lime mojito as she still had to drive afterward. Sinuo quietly observed what Xingwang would order. She was starting to see the look of someone who had never been to a bar. When she snapped him out of his daze for the order, Xingwang just waved his hand and told her that anything would be fine. Since that was the case, Sinuo got him a Long Island iced tea, a strong drink perfect for making someone spill the truth while drunk. This witch was really locked in to prove that someone was broke. The music was loud and the people were lit, drunk, and having fun on the floor. While enjoying their respective drinks, Sinuo brought up a special bartender named Danny, who made amazing but pricey drinks. Haowen knew that this was another one of her schemes to get Xingwang's wallet out. She wanted to make him face reality if he really was faking this display of wealth. While she was scheming, he was casing the club for influencers who might become potential business partners to make more cash in the future. Sinuo did not like being ignored. When he finally looked her way, Sinuo proposed that they play dice to stomp the boredom down. He seemed receptive to the idea and asked how the game worked. Sinuo didn't just want to play a normal game of dice. She wanted something more exciting. If you lose, you take off a piece of clothing. But you can bail yourself out of stripping with 10,000 instead. Xingwang smirked at the audacity of this woman. He stood before the witch and reminded her that he used to be the company's operations manager, and he knew all about her info and skills. He knew this girl was a dice expert. Ordinary people could not beat her. Realizing that her plan to humiliate and extort money had backfired before it even started, Jinhuo was stun-locked. Xingwang started going off. He knew what this girl was thinking. A mere operations guy earning 5,000 a month with no bright future ahead was pretending to be rich. He already knew that she was toxic trash from the start, but he wanted to let things slide to keep his night with Howen fun. But it led to him being seen as an easy target. He wasn't stupid or a pushover. He could see through Xinuo's disdain completely. So the system rewarded him for standing up for himself and exposing another person's scheme. It netted him a cool million, pushing his current balance to 1.89 mil. Xingwang did not deny that he did not come from a rich family. Xinuo immediately took this as a confession to support her case that he was just pretending. He was not done speaking, though. Suddenly, the laid-back Xingwang was gone as he flaunted his power. Instead of playing dice, he would gladly give her 300,000 to strip all her clothes and walk out of the bar naked. Feeling uncomfortable, Xinuo played the damsel in distress role perfectly. Howen had to step in and defuse the situation, urging him to sit down and play with her for a while instead. Seeing him back up, Xinuo started back up again, telling him that he did not have 300,000 yuan to throw around carelessly. He just replied by addressing the whole bar and treating everyone to 300,000 yuan worth of drinks. That's the literal definition of FU money. His golden card shimmered with the bar lights. A fugue bar employee worked quickly and discreetly to swipe his card and confirm the payment. The spotlight was on Xingwang as the ladies and the boys looked up to the big spender. None of them were expecting a whole night of free drinking, and most of them were already drunk. Treating the whole bar was a display of generosity and extravagance, so the system rewarded Xingwang with more than 600,000 yuan. That number seemed kind of sussy, though. Xinuo was stunned as she watched Xingwang casually throw 300k to strangers. He passed by her and whispered that he did not care if she looked down on him. He never intended to make her respect him anyway. His sights were set higher. After all, vindictive people like Xinuo were nothing more than ants. She had a bad habit of looking at other people's wallets. These types of people could easily be humiliated by money. Xingwang sat down, and everyone was eerily silent. Xinuo followed suit, hanging her head low in shame while he looked at her. Qingqing could sense the tension in the air and looked to Howen for an answer. Unable to stomach the shame and humiliation, Xinuo excused herself for the night, faking a smile as though she was supposed to do something else tonight. But as soon as she got far from the booth, she ran away with tears streaming down her face. Meanwhile, Xingwang was just playing with the dice she had left on the table. He told Qingqing and Howen to continue having fun, as he would be picking up the tab for everyone in the bar anyway. But they were interrupted by another girl who recognized Howen. She asked if Howen's stream today was a failure and if she came to the bar to drink her sorrows away. The stranger hammered down the fact that Howen's top fan was spending less and less. Howen had just gotten out of work and did not want to talk about this stuff in the club. Miss Stranger continued tormenting her for acting innocent and flaunting her charms with a fake sense of purity. Finally ticked off, Howen swiped the stranger's hand away, staring daggers right into the girl's soul. Xingwang quietly watched as this all went down. Instead of leaving, the strange girl sat in the booth and proposed that they should not pass up a good opportunity to stream together. So, Jie went live and greeted her viewers while introducing Howen. She also asked her viewers if they would like to see a live PK in the bar. Jie acted helpless while telling the chat that Howen was not feeling the challenge and urged them to convince her to agree. Immediately, her phone notifications blew up with all sorts of requests for her to take the challenge. Jie had set this scenario up. Her big shots were ready to support her tonight to finally surpass Howen as the top dance streamer. It would only be a matter of time before those top fans made their move. For now, Howen had to take a phone call from the agency. As expected, it was the executives pressuring her to go live immediately and not miss the opportunity to trend, even though she was not in good condition. The higher-ups had already paid for promotion, and if she did not start streaming, there would be consequences. While Jie entertained her chat, Howen dejectedly came up to her after being forced to take the challenge. When asked if she was scared, the top dance streamer just urged the number 2 to get started. The people cleared the dance floor to give the two plenty of space to duke it out. As soon as the music started, each one took a gracious pose for the camera. Qingqing monitored the chat on her phone and saw many rockets and yachts flying all over the screen. Howen was starting to lose against the challenger. Say what you want about Jie, but she was a shrewd businesswoman for this planned PK challenge alone. On the other hand, Howen wasn't feeling 100% healthy in the first place. Some of her chatters were starting to talk badly about her dancing. It did not help that she was losing the donation war too. She did not have her top fan brother Z in the chat after all. Seeing this setup, Xingwang immediately realized that Jie was playing dirty and cornering Haowen. Haowen was supposed to be the undisputed #1 in her category, but she was being crushed in donations. Fortunately, the outcome was still uncertain, and the first rocket tip on Haowen's side brought a twist to the competition. The donation came from a mysterious figure known only as Big Brother. Haowen was genuinely grateful for the generous donation, and took a second to thank her anonymous benefactor. But it did not stop there, as a second, third, and fourth rocket surged forth, tipping the scales in Haowen's favor slightly. Meanwhile, Jie was too worried that Haowen would bounce back and continue her dominance. She had never heard of a hidden Big Brother in Haowen's chat, so this was disconcerting. But this cunning girl had a rabid fanbase who would gladly empty their wallets just to see her win. Despite her best efforts to rally her supporters, the mounting pressure was palpable. On the other hand, Haowen was just staring at her phone screen in shock as the rockets continued to come in. Everyone was wondering the same thing. Who was this Big Brother? He had donated over $1 million in just a short amount of time. Some speculated that her agency was forcefully promoting her, but spending this much on one talent was unlikely, as the platform takes a massive cut of 60 to 70%. Xingwang was just watching from afar, getting bored of all the commotion. His system had given him $5 million more for letting his money flow like water with no pretenses. Haowen had stopped dancing altogether, but the big spender kept on tipping. Some even thought that a kid must have gotten hold of a phone and clicked by mistake. But the culprit was just inside the bar, covertly tapping on his phone, each tap representing ungodly amounts of money. The stream shot up to the top of the trending page. New viewers came in to watch the millionaire flex his money. Even when Haowen asked if she could catch her breath, the rockets never stopped launching. By now, 2,000 rockets had been sent in a small PK contest. Jie's diamond-level Big Shots group was in chaos, refusing to lose to a single big spender. For the sake of their girl, they needed to fork out some serious cash too. Because of this, Jie's progress bar started fighting back as rockets were launched one after another. She personally and adorably thanked Time Revealer and Old Kang for their continued support and their rockets. One of her top fans had wanted a private video from her before. He was rich and generous, so he definitely wouldn't miss the chance to play the hero. That man was Boss Tong, and with him joining the rocket war while Haowen's side died down, victory seemed within reach. Xingwang quietly laughed to himself as he sat down and looked at his phone. He tapped on the screen as fast as humanly possible. This quick succession of taps represented another 100 rockets sent to Haowen. The system congratulated him for becoming the new top Big Brother in Haowen's chat and rewarded him with another 10 million. With a boost in his bank account, Xingwang continued flaunting his wealth by sending 500 more rockets. This little contest was practically an infinite money glitch for his system. By the end of the last song, Haowen was declared the winner of the PK match. She thanked everyone who supported her, especially this new Big Brother. To cap off the celebration, Big Brother sent another 1,000 rockets to congratulate Haowen. This last donation made Xingwang the top daily donator on the entire platform. This earned him another 10 million, and for his efforts in sending the rockets, another 1 million was added. Haowen politely thanked Big Brother for the support that won her the PK match and brought in a lot of attention. It was the first time she had reached millions of live viewers at once. She was grateful, but ended with the message that everyone works hard for their money and should not waste it on a streamer like her. Her display of humility just made her audience adore her even more. This was the charm of a pure and unpretentious woman. Jie stared at her phone in defeat. All the effort she put in was for nothing against a single donator. In the end, she had only helped Haowen rise to even greater fame. That girl had received tens of millions in donations in one go. This was a single-day achievement that even top streamers could not easily attain. With the contest wrapped up, Xingwang got up from his seat and yawned, yearning to rest in his bed. He found Jie sulking in a corner and praised her for having so many big brothers willing to support her. He urged her to work hard and maybe surpass Haowen someday. It definitely stung to hear that after a fresh loss. Qingqing and Haowen knew that. Jie was stuck reconsidering her life choices in the middle of the club, while the party of three exited the premises. Outside, Qingqing could not stop talking about Jie's humiliation. She was just glad that karma had done its thing and made Jie's plan backfire. As a streamer herself, she was in awe of this super rich big brother who could spend money like he was the #1 tycoon on the platform. Surprisingly, Haowen did not seem excited at all. She confessed that she felt unworthy of it. Tens of millions had just entered her bank account from a fan she had never seen on her stream before, leaving her with a sense of unease that was hard to shake. Qingqing urged her to wake up and treasure this godsend of a donator. Qingqing herself wanted to get close to this generous big brother. She took the user ID from Haowen and brazenly sent a private message to the big tipper. As soon as she pressed send, Xingwang's phone lit up with a message notification. When the ringtone sounded, the girls looked behind them suspiciously. It was the official notification of the streaming app, so it seemed too much of a coincidence. Howen also felt that Xinguang could be connected to what happened earlier. He tried to deny their suspicions that he was the big brother. Without a cover story ready, he struggled to make it believable. Xinguang claimed he was just dealing with numerous private messages from different businesses. But just a moment ago, he had spent millions, and the big brother would need to be worth at least billions. Using this reasoning, Xinguang pretended that he couldn't afford to spend tens of millions in minutes. Qingqing also noticed the similarities between Big Brother Wang and Xinguang's name. To change the subject and finally wrap up the day, Howen offered to drive him home. Since he lived near Longhu New City, which was out of her way, he insisted on just getting a cab. Their plan to head home was abruptly interrupted by a drunken man who had just stumbled out of the club, casting a tense atmosphere over the scene. Based on her defeated reaction, it seemed like Howen knew this man already. In fact, everyone knew this man. He was Xinguang's former boss. The man started running his mouth about how unemployed people shouldn't be going to bars while relying on women to pay. Howen immediately spoke up to clarify that they were the ones relying on Xinguang tonight for dinner and drinks. The belligerent boss was shocked to hear such a ridiculous thing. He interpreted what she said as Howen kindly covering for the poor guy's dignity. Drunk boss argued that everyone's bill had been taken care of by a mysterious person, so it should not be possible for Xinguang to treat the girls to drinks. He continued calling Xinguang a poor man who didn't have much aside from his sweet talk to charm women. Qingqing decided to step in too, insisting that Xinguang had treated everyone in the bar. The drunk boss immediately lashed out, telling her to shut up. He told Qingqing to stop being so cocky after gaining a few fans when all those fans were fake. This comment surprised and confused the carefree girl, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. It was a harsh reminder that her success was not entirely her own, and it shook her confidence. Drunk boss proudly revealed that the company had spent a lot on Qingqing's promotion, even buying fake followers. All she did was do her makeup without securing any ad deals. Qingqing was essentially a money-losing asset, unlike Howen, who could dance for a single night and bring millions to the agency. Without stopping, the boss suggested that Qingqing should wear less during her tutorials on stream, instead of pretending to be pure. Maybe she could also go down the route of a dance streamer. As for Howen, he offered her a supporting role in a TV drama, saying he could make it happen if she agreed to spend the night with him. Before the drunken boss could get his grubby hands near Howen, Xinguang, fueled by a sense of justice, grabbed his hand with force. The power struggle was palpable as he stared his previous boss in the eyes and told him to show some respect to the ladies. Annoyed, the boss swiped his hand away and called Xinguang a lowlife trying to play the hero. He mocked Xinguang, asking if he could provide Howen with the resources she needed while wearing a knockoff LV bag covered in logos. Xinguang had heard enough of the drunk's senseless ranting, so he told him to get lost. Howen looked at his determined expression and saw a spark there. He looked just like a knight in shining armor. She stood up for herself, her voice steady and her eyes fierce, as she threatened to terminate her contract with the company if she was harassed again. The boss, Manager He, listened to her threats and laughed. He reminded her that she had signed a 5-year contract with the company with 1 more year left. If she forced an early termination, she would have to pay a 10 million penalty. With the money she earned tonight and her previous savings, she could easily afford that much. Knowing this was true, Manager He grew even more enraged. He started calling influencers the modern-day courtesans, claiming they were not selling art, but their bodies. He said he had no patience for fake purity. He also warned that, even if she could pay the penalty, the company would never let Howen go. No one in their right mind would abandon a cash cow who continuously brought in money. If she resisted, he threatened, blacklisting her in the industry would be easy with just 1 word from the real boss. Xinguang stepped in to save the struggling Howen. He proclaimed that if she couldn't leave, it would be fine. He could just buy Meow Meow Media itself. If that happened, the one leaving the company wouldn't be Howen. It would be this lecherous Manager He. The seriousness in the young man's voice sobered Manager He up. Then a look of pure disdain crept up on his ugly mug. He started tapping and poking Xinguang as if he were speaking to something less than human. He sarcastically retorted that he would be waiting for the broke bastard to save up and buy the company. He ended the interaction with a rude spit as he went back inside the bar. He did not like seeing other guys trying to show off in front of him at all. Nevertheless, the damage was done. Qingqing's enthusiasm from earlier was gone and replaced by dread and confusion. She started wondering if all her viewers were really fake, just bots and paid watchers. Howen noticed that her friend was starting to spiral down a dangerous path. Qingqing loved her livestream fans. She appreciated those big shots that threw money at her, and thinking that the company was behind it all was making her question everything. Thankfully, Howen, her friend, was there to ground her in reality. Qingqing had a lot of people watching her makeup streams. He was just trying to put her down and manipulate her into thinking that she owed everything to the company so she would remain obedient. Howen knew better than to be upset by that scumbag's words, but Ching Ching did not. Xingwang watched the girls console each other and could not help but feel affected. Howen expressed her gratitude to him for standing up against that bastard manager. Ching Ching also did her part and clarified things, even though they ended up pissing off the manager. If it had not been for this incident, she would have never known that the company looked down on their talents so much. Ching Ching was done feeling sorry for herself, and was now extremely angry. Howen turned to Xingwang and asserted that they were just former colleagues, and he did not have to stand up for her like that. He smiled brightly and assured her that it was fine. He had disliked that bastard boss for a while, so it was nice to blow up for once. Howen smiled too, slowly seeing the charm of the young man. It was still unsure whether they would get a chance to meet again, but she wished him well and hoped that Xingwang would soar high now that he was on his own. The co-workers got a lot closer that night. As they exchanged their goodbyes, they shook each other's hands. A mutual respect had formed between the two. Howen and Ching Ching drove away to head back home. Xingwang was left on the side of the road after insisting on taking a cab by himself. He was so focused on sending rockets earlier that his big brother identity almost got revealed by a notification sound. By the end of the day, his bank account balance had reached a whopping 109 million yuan. He was about to reach billionaire status at this rate. Before celebrating this massive leap in life, he looked up ways to go back home. A train ticket would be far too normal, so he chose to book a flight. The plane tickets were quite expensive, even though it was just a domestic flight. The green train he had taken before was only a bit over 300 yen, so seeing the price tags on the plane tickets was quite jarring. Xingwang sighed and tapped on the booking confirmation. Splurging on transportation should not be a problem from now on. Shihao Airlines scammed 4,000 yen out of his pockets, but it should lead to a smoother ride back home. Also, the system gave him 10,000 for selecting the most expensive first-class choice. For tonight, Xingwang went straight back to the dorm room to get some much-needed rest. After the eventful night out, his peaceful rest stretched into late in the morning. He would have stayed serenely stuck to the bed if it were not for the aggressive knocking on his door and the landlady's grating voice asking for rent payment. Hearing her voice automatically made Xingwang's body wake up in distress and annoyance. The same thing always happened every month, a week before the rent's due date. This landlady had nothing better to do than nag for payments. He was practically traumatized by this psychological torture, no matter how hard he tried to cover his ears. At 6 a.m., he finally decided to get out of bed and face the problem head-on. The landlady's knocks never stopped all the way through. When he opened the door with his phone in hand, the landlady started going on about how young people were so lazy that they had to be constantly reminded of their responsibilities. Without talking to the lady, Xingwang quickly scanned the QR code she was carrying and sent the money over. He paid 1 whole year of rent in one go, stunning the strict landlady. Her phone notified her that 10,000 yuan had been successfully received, but as far as she knew, this broke Xingwang should not have this kind of money to pay at once. She was starting to get suspicious. There was even an extra 400 yuan in the transfer. Xingwang just called it a service fee, so she would never nag him for rent for a whole year. After sleepily yawning at her face, he slammed the door closed, leaving the loud landlady speechless. She wanted to argue with him, but she could not think of anything else to bring up. Xingwang finally had some peace and got back to bed. Since the flight he booked was leaving at 10, he reckoned that he could stay in bed for 3 more hours. His roommate, the guy on the lower bunk of the bunk bed, asked if he had hit the jackpot or something. He couldn't really respond since he had drifted off to dreamland once more. Paying an entire year's rent and even tipping the landlord showed off the new heights he had reached. For that, the system rewarded him with a villa in Swan Bay of Sang City. No matter how sleepy he was, that system notification was enough to wake anyone up. He analyzed the system's message carefully to double-check if he read it right. Not only did he own a house now, but he also held the keys to his new villa. His roommate just looked at Xingwang like a weirdo. Our boy, Hang Xingwang, sat up in his bed and began the process of locking in. You should do the same. He parkoured over the top bunk guardrail, jumping down to the floor. Curious, his bunkmate asked where he was rushing off to so speedily. Xingwang ran to the door and simply told his roommate that he was finally going back home. His first stop was the airport, and he wouldn't be coming back for a while as he took care of business there. His roomie ran after him, reminding Xingwang to pack his luggage, but there would be no need for that. He was too focused on going home and getting his mom a VIP hospital room. In her standard accommodation, Dad was peeling apples for sickly Mom. Dad notified her that their son would be coming over. That kid was so excited that he sent 100,000 yuan, which he allegedly earned through part-time work. Mom was worried that her son was getting mixed up in something illegal to earn that much from part-time gigs. Dad just laughed, as he knew his son too well. He knew that Xingwang was not the type of kid who would do something like that. Speaking of Xingwang, the rich blonde Gigachad burst into the room, making his flashy entrance. The look of worry was evident on his face as he asked how Mom was doing. He was a good son, who didn't want his mom to feel any discomfort whatsoever. She assured her boy that she was fine. She just needed minor surgery for her illness, but her vitals were promising. Dad had already guaranteed this on the phone, yet he still came all the way home, and it looked like he had run all the way to the hospital with how sweaty he was. As he handed a peeled apple to his boy, Dad worriedly asked how work was going and if he had any trouble with the bosses for taking leave. Xingwang chose to be honest and wholeheartedly confessed that he had quit his job. At first, his parents were shocked at such a drastic decision. Any parent would have reacted the same way. They did not reprimand him for doing so. They knew their Xingwang was a good son who would always land on his feet. They also knew that he had been through a lot in the city, but now he could take a good rest and eat well at home. Suddenly, Xingwang's worries melted under the reassuring words of his mom and dad. They truly were his safe harbor. They had always been understanding and supportive of him. He then asked his dad if the medical bills had been settled properly. Dad explained that most of the borrowed money had been paid yesterday after their call. He even wanted to transfer the 100,000 back to Xingwang so he could spend it on himself, as young men needed money for many things these days. Xingwang declined and told his dad to keep it for their expenses. As for the remaining unpaid debts, he would like to settle them and pay them back quickly too. Hearing that, Dad started feeling a little awkward as he mentioned the relatives they had borrowed from. Seeing how his dad was acting, Xingwang already had a bad feeling about this debt. There was a possibility that his father had to get a loan from his uncle, and that wasn't a good idea. He stormed out of the room with the intent of paying those people back immediately. Dad argued that he would find a way to pay them back soon, so Xingwang should just relax. He knew that his boy worked hard to save money, and he did not want to mess with his kid's future. Seeing the boys argue, Mom's tears started pouring down. She blamed herself for being sick and burdening the family. She knew how hard her kid had been working in the city, yet he was worrying about medical expenses. Xingwang had the habit of regularly sending money back to his parents while living a rough life away from home without complaint. He needed money to pay rent, socialize, and for everything else, yet he always put family first. Seeing his mom's tears, Xingwang tried his best to reassure her that he wasn't neglecting himself out there. Also, now that he had a new lucrative part-time job, also known as the system, there wouldn't be any need to worry about expenses ever. He could even afford to get the most authoritative specialist to treat his mom without worrying about the cost. But for now, he really wanted to go to his uncle's house to repay that nasty debt. He did not want to owe people favors, especially to those relatives of theirs. After reassuring his mom, Xingwang walked out of the hospital and came across a tricycle driver. He hopped on the back of the tricycle and asked the chill-looking driver to take him to 32 Hutong Road. The engine roared, and they went off on their merry way. Riding in the back, Xingwang could feel the egregious bumpiness of the road. As far as he could remember, the road quality shouldn't be this bad in this place. He curiously asked the driver why the ride was so bumpy when there was supposed to be a road repair project that started 2 years ago. Well, the government did start the repairs, but they just made it worse than before. They said the contractors colluded with officials and ran away with the money halfway through the project, leaving the road torn up and unfinished. Hearing this blatant incompetence and corruption pissed Xingwang off. The higher-ups in this place were truly lawless. In a poor region in the middle of nowhere, things were always tough. He could not help but think that if his family weren't financially stable enough to support his education, he might have been stuck in this hellhole of a town forever. After the long and bumpy ride, Xingwang transferred 5 yuan to the kind driver. They used WeChat to remind him that they were in China. Xingwang looked at the luxurious house in front of him with annoyance. They were supposed to be relatives, but these people lived in a 100-square-meter mansion, while his family only had a few dozen square meters of brick and concrete. If it weren't for them taking all the money from his grandfather's relocation compensation, there would not be such a massive gap between their families. Now they even had to borrow money for medical expenses. He gnashed his teeth and proceeded to knock on the gate loudly. Surprisingly, a pretty young woman with red hair and questionable pants came out of the gate to answer. She knew Han Xingwang and he knew her. Her name was Wang Ju. But why was she in his uncle's house in the first place? When he posed the tough question, Wang Ju just stood there as if she could not come up with a proper answer. But then Xingwang's cousin also showed his extremely punch-worthy face and put his arm around her shoulders. He arrogantly announced that Wang Ju was about to be Xingwang's cousin-in-law now. Xingwang did not really care about their relationship. He just wanted to see if his uncle was home so he could repay the debt and be done with it once and for all. Wang Ju looked at his reaction and assumed that Xingwang must be acting cold because he was still attracted to her and hung up on her. Seeing his girl look at his cousin softly, the bastard cousin slapped her on the ass. He looked at her threateningly and grimly reminded Wang Ju that she was about to be his wife, so she should not let her eyes wander. She assured him that she was just looking at how fascinatingly pathetic Han Xingwang had become. He was not wearing a single branded item. Xingwang claimed to live in a big city, yet he was going backward. Wangju believed that the countryside was a lot better. There, her husband could wear Adidas and Nike anytime he wanted. Her bro was flexing Adidas and Nike in front of 100 millionaires. The dumb couple let Xingwang in, and he found his uncle playing cards with a few buddies in the lavish living room. Uncle introduced his nephew, who worked in the big city, to his pals, and the hint of condescension was obvious. Riding in on the fun, the bumpkin card players asked if Xingwang earned big bucks in the big city. They knew some people who moved to the big cities and earned hundreds of thousands. Cousin Dakai came in to deliver the gut punch, telling everyone that Xingwang was so successful that he worked like a horse for a mere 5,000 yen a month, while they paid old ladies to feed pigs in the village for 3,000. He continued tormenting his cousin, asking how much Xingwang had in savings. With the exorbitant rents in the city, he might be taking home less cash than the pig feeders. Xingwang ignored the annoying cousin and went straight to business. He told his uncle that he came by to repay the debt, not to make small talk. Uncle was too focused on his cards, though. It looked like he was winning after all. Uncle assured his nephew that there was no need to rush, as he understood how difficult it must be for Xingwang's family. He would be charging interest anyway, so this was not charity. Xingwang continued trying to be polite, but Uncle just refused to take his money. They all thought he was struggling with no cash to his name, but our boy was insistent. He wouldn't leave this house as long as the debt remained unpaid. Uncle finally caved to his insistence and even offered an installment plan as he ordered his son, Dakai, to bring over the red book. Cousin Dakai handed the red book to Xingwang, and for a second, he genuinely wanted his cousin to relax about the loan. He believed that blood was thicker than water, but Uncle asserted that the family's college graduate was too prideful and didn't want his relatives' money, even though they should be helping one another as a family. A moment later, Xingwang finished transferring 51,000 yuan to his uncle's account to cover the debt and interest. Uncle hurriedly checked his balance on his Nokia phone, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The kid really did it. He really transferred the full amount. Surprised, he turned to Xingwang and curiously asked where he got the money from. Hang Xingwang headed for the door and simply answered that he earned it by working in the city. Cousin Dakai sneered and assumed that Xingwang was just being prideful at the cost of his mom's suffering. At this point, dignity should not matter. 51,000 could cost them their lives and savings. Sure, that might have been true a few days ago, but that was no longer the case. Wangju wrapped her arms around her man and proposed to see Xingwang off. She said she wanted to clear up any misunderstandings with him to avoid awkwardness now that they were family too. Dakai liked that idea. He wanted his girl to let Xingwang know his place. She quickly ran after our boy. Wangju had the nerve to tell him to stop holding on to any old feelings he might still have for her while acting like they didn't know each other anymore. The two of them used to be childhood friends. They grew up together, and she knew that he liked her the entire time, but she only ever saw him as a little brother. Soon she'd marry Dakai, so it would be best if Xingwang stopped his feelings for her. He looked at that witch like she was the most delusional person in the world. This girl had the audacity to give him a whole speech when he didn't even care about her. Not getting the hint, Wangju continued on. She said that it would be bad for his and the family's reputation if people heard about his feelings for her. It would go against common decency. Xingwang couldn't hold his laughter anymore. He tried hard to stifle it and turned to Wangju. He simply told her to go take a look at herself in the mirror. Cook that delusional fraud, brother. Of course Wangju was furious at such words, but Xingwang didn't care about that. He saw the whole situation differently. Wangju had never been his childhood sweetheart, just a friend he had fun throwing cow dung at each other. Of course he remembered how kind she was as a child and hoped that Wangju would not despise the poor and like the rich, but would instead grow up to be hardworking and cheerful, treating everyone with love regardless of their wealth. But unfortunately in reality, she was no different from other greedy people like his uncle. Now he wasn't going to pretend like he didn't despise her. Wangju understood these words in her own way, certain that he was saying this because he didn't get her as a wife, and that's why he was angry and trying to humiliate her. But she was ready to forgive him because she would soon be his sister-in-law, and she didn't want to fight with him. Let the past be the past, no matter what it was. Such an answer surprised Xingwang, though what else could he expect from another greedy girl? He wasn't going to waste any more time on her and turned around to leave quickly. This attitude made Wangju even more furious. She had tried to appear friendly, but now her patience had run out and she wasn't going to pretend anymore. She quickly stood in front of Xingwang and asked what he was thinking to do. Does he really hope to become someone significant just because he graduated from a second-rate university and lives in the city? It's all useless, and he will never become as rich as his cousin no matter how hard he tries. Wangju thought she had long ago understood how life works. The rich like his uncle can live in luxury, in a house of hundreds of square meters, eat, drink, and relax, while poor people like Xingwang and his family are forced to cram in a small apartment, constantly in debt and working. For her, the choice was obvious. But even there, she didn't stop and remembered about Xingwang's mom, who was constantly sick and making their situation even worse with hospital bills. And neither $5,000 nor $15,000 would solve that problem. She's also sick of being nice and glad she could say all this to his face. Of course, Xingwang was pissed at this little witch who finally showed her real self. She doesn't even know what she's talking about when she thinks his uncle and cousin are the richest in the world, and brags about it like it's worth something. In reality, Xingwang and everyone else doesn't care about her and her future husband. And with her behavior, she just showed that she's just a narcissistic painted toad. Wangju didn't even know what to say and could only point her finger at our hero, trying to think of ways to humiliate him. But Xingwang was ahead of her. He had something else to say, because unlike her future husband, he is self-sufficient, works hard, is diligent and motivated, respects his parents, and does not treat people based on their wealth. And that's all much better than just the money his cousin has. And Wangju should stop acting like a crazy person and just look in the mirror. For exposing and putting in place another money-hungry witch, the system rewarded our hero with another house. However, there was one thing that the house was about to be demolished. It was a bit unexpected, but Xingwang was going to deal with it. Meanwhile, Wangju was not going to calm down, and kept pointing her finger at our hero, saying all sorts of insults. He got fed up and grabbed her finger and pointed it back at her, advising her to stay in this house with her future husband and not to harm others. At this, he hurriedly walked away from this crazy girl. But soon as he got far away, a car caught up with him. And of course, he got splashed with mud from a puddle. Who'd doubt it? It was his cousin in the car. He stopped, and did not miss the opportunity to laugh with Xingwang, justifying himself by saying that he was in a hurry to go to the construction site. After all, his company had recently received an order from the First City Construction Bureau, and now he was the one in charge of building roads in the town. Moreover, he offered Xingwang a job if he wanted one. There would always be a job at the construction site. Xingwang immediately realized why the roads in the town were so terrible. It was obvious the son had inherited his uncle's talents in corruption. In that case, Xingwang was ready to help his hometown and eliminate these scoundrels from government contracts. To do so, he went to the First City Construction Bureau and sponsored the construction of new roads in the town instead of his cousin's crooked repairs. For this, the residents were very grateful to him and promised that they would always remember his kindness. To Xingwang, it was just a trifle now. Of course, the system rewarded him for it. In gratitude for investing in the development of his hometown, he was given 100 houses to own. Even Xingwang, who was used to receiving generous gifts from the system, was shocked. He didn't even know what to do with all these properties. But in this system could not help him. It was a gift based on his behavior, and now he himself must decide what to do with it all. Of course, our hero wasn't going to blame the system for that. Better to have 100 houses than none, right? But even so, he began to notice that the system is becoming more and more abstract, and if before he received only small amounts of money, now he gets hundreds of houses. What's going to happen next? Will the wealth of the whole world end up in his hands? To this question, he has not yet found the answer. Daytime in the hospital, the dutiful son, Heng Xingwang, peeled apples for his mom, sharing a caring and tender mother and son moment. A moment later, the doctor and nurses entered with a smile, informing them that the surgery was successful and mom could now be discharged. Given that the surgery took place just yesterday, Xingwang immediately protested that his mom still needed more recovery observation periods and shouldn't be discharged. The fees won't be a problem at all. With a dark expression, the doctor asserted that he already processed the discharge papers. He then ordered his nurses to help the patient pack her things as fast as possible. Xingwang refused to stand down. There's clearly something fishy going on here. Worried, his mom tried to get her son to stand down. Starting to become impatient, the doctor dropped his polite demeanor and continued asserting his orders. He insisted that they were just taking up medical resources unnecessarily and that other patients needed the room. Xingwang slammed the knife he used to peel apples down the table, making the bastard doctor flinch. Shaken, the monster threatened to call security if Xingwang caused trouble. Not wanting to be a burden, Mom softly tried to convince her son that they should just give way and that there was no need to spend more money on medical fees. The doctor echoed his mom's sentiment, telling Xingwang to be a good son and listen. He then turned to the nurses who were packing up the clothes and nastily asserted that any trace of poverty should be cleaned. Balling his fists and trembling in anger, Heng Xingwang refused to let this matter go. He advised his mom to wait up and call Dad while he takes care of something. She worried that her headstrong son might get into trouble. With a smile, he assured her that he wouldn't be using force this time. In the chief physician's office, Dr. Bastard hopped on a phone call to assure a client that they had cleared the room and another patient could move in. As it turns out, he's kicking Xingwang's mom out for a client with a measly sprained ankle. On the other line was none other than Xingwang's dumbass cousin, praising Dr. Li for working fast. Dr. Bastard is just glad that a broke patient is leaving to make way for a wealthier one. He cited that letting brokies who can't pay on time and drowning in debt stay in their hospital is a total waste of space. Hang Dakai promised to treat the doctor to dinner later as a proper thank you. Of course, he's just doing this shit to cause trouble to his cousin. He doesn't like being disrespected in his small-town turf. With a cash envelope in hand, the doctor laughed, pleased with the extra dough he pocketed by kicking out a patient. Unbeknownst to him, Hang Xingwang had been listening in on the conversation behind the door. If these bastards want to play with money, he'll gladly play along. Seeing how money can make the impossible happen, Xingwang is confident that he's an expert in this area. His next destination was the hospital director's office. He knocked and entered. Confused, the hospital director asked who he was. Casually strolling into the office, he introduced himself as just an ordinary patient. Annoyed by his casual demeanor, the director told him to consult the registration desk instead. Getting straight down to business, Hang Xingwang proposed the idea of donating a whole-ass building to the hospital. Not bothering to listen to what he had to say, the director rudely told him to get out. When the director realized what the young man just said, his glasses almost fell from his face. He asked if Xingwang even knew the cost of donating a whole building. Assessing the young man and his outfit, the director reckoned that he might not even have 200 yuan to his name. Xingwang assured the old director that he already looked into it and funds wouldn't be a problem. In this small county, a medical building should cost about $1 million, just a drop in a bucket of his infinite wealth. It'll also benefit the locals. He commented on the overcrowded wards in the hospital and his desire to help. He wanted to make things more convenient for every patient, especially after surgeries. However, he also wanted an investigation into any corrupt practices by employees. While the director is aware of overcrowding, he resents the implications of corrupt practices. Xingwang knows that the director is in a helpless situation, and so are some doctors. However, some of them are taking dirty money from special connections and harming ordinary patients. Refusing to believe the accusations, the director asserted that he's been in the industry for decades and he trusts his principled doctors. Xingwang finally explained his mother's case. She just had major surgery 24 hours ago, and now she's being forcefully discharged to make room for an incoming patient with a sprained ankle. Headstrong, the director refused to believe the allegations. He can't even imagine that one of his doctors would do something that heinous. It doesn't align with their hospital procedures at all. Angered, he told Xingwang to at least make up a believable story if he was going to play pranks. To calm him down, the young man pulled out a voice recorder and urged him to listen first. The director pushed the recorder up to his ear and intently listened. Recorded on the device was the whole conversation between Dr. Li and Hang Dakai. Still refusing to believe after hearing the whole tape, the director refuted that recordings can be faked or edited. Xingwang reckoned that this old man must be either naive or he's in on the malpractices and trying to cover it up. Seeing that his first card wasn't strong enough, Xingwang made a phone call to Engineer Kang's office from City Construction Unit 1 and casually put in an order for a new building for the county hospital like he was ordering pizza. He then asked the engineer to swing by the hospital director's office to discuss the details of the construction. Since the director was still being skeptical, Xingwang passed the phone to him. The young man urged the director to not let a few minutes of stubbornness cost the hospital a whole building, and extended his hand. Upon lifting the phone up to his ear, the director heard and recognized the engineer's voice. Engineer Kang congratulated the old bat for being so lucky and getting a free building out of nowhere. A few minutes of chatting with the engineer wildly changed the director's disposition. He's finally convinced that Xingwang is a low-profile tycoon of some sort. The two sat down, and the young man reiterated his demands and hearkened back to the audio evidence. Still, the director doesn't think that a recording would suffice to take drastic action. Xingwang simply upped his offer to 2 buildings, shocking the old bat. Putting his foot down, he asserted that he didn't have any other requests. He just wanted to punish that bastard doctor severely. With a proper investigation, the hospital must restore fair opportunities for ordinary patients. When asked for his name, he explained that he was just an ordinary kid from a farming family doing what was right for the people. His name is not important. He almost looked cool until he added that they could just refer to him as the messenger of justice. As soon as he exited the office, the director furiously reached for his phone and ordered someone to bring him the most recent discharge records for investigation as soon as possible. Later in the day, a nurse came to Dr. Li to inform him that the director was waiting for him outside the ward. As soon as the director hatefully laid out the case against Dr. Bastard, he dropped to his knees. He begged his boss to not fire him. He pitifully cried and insisted that he had elderly parents and young children to support. He simply can't lose his job. The director looked at him like a disgusting worm. A doctor like this with no ethics will never be welcome to the county hospital. Back in Hang Dakai's home, he boasted to his gold-digging wife that his career was on the rise, and they'd be able to afford a house in the city soon. The peaceful massage session was interrupted by someone angrily barging in through the door. It was his brother. He's pissed at Dakai after seeing his ankle-sprained wife get kicked out of the hospital because of Dakai's faulty connection and bribe. This is his first time hearing this wrinkle. Hang Dakai hurriedly pulled his phone out, promising that he'd call the hospital and clear up the misunderstanding. He dialed Dr. Lee and, to his surprise, the number had been disconnected, leaving him in the dark about what had just happened. As soon as Xinguang brought his mom back home after a proper and timely discharge, boxes of medical equipment were wheeled into the Hang family residence. His mom worried that hiring a caretaker and all the equipment would cost a lot of money. Xinguang assured her that the hospital arranged everything so they didn't have to spend a single cent out of pocket. Dr. Lee was fired for malpractice, and this is their compensation. Xinguang felt good about himself. He helped his mom and the people of the county in the process. Suddenly, Hang Dakai barged through their gate, accusing Xinguang of playing tricks. He spent more than 10,000 on a hospital bed, and it was all for nothing. Not knowing what was happening, Mom scolded Dakai for blabbering like a crazy person. The dumbass just verbally admitted to bribery. Acting as though he didn't know, Xinguang returned the anger and blamed Dakai for his mom's untimely discharge. Realizing that he messed up, Dakai tried to backtrack his accusations while fumbling his words. He then continued accusing Xinguang of pulling strings behind the scenes, leading to the hospital arranging for a private caretaker for his mom. He asserted that the hospital's director was just an upright guy who wanted to make things right. Dakai refused the flimsy excuse and demanded that he be compensated. It took him and his brother a long time to build business connections, and his career is on the line. Now that he offended the guy, he's pinning the responsibility on Xinguang. Our boy played dumb. Dakai had been boasting that he's a high-income earner making millions a year, yet he's here extorting money from his poorer extended family. He asked Dakai if a guy like him, making 5,000 a month and grinding in the city in a small apartment, had the power to make a big boss fall so hard. Given his stupidity and ego, Dakai didn't have the mental capacity to clap back. Xinguang escorted his mom back inside the house, chalking up Dakai's outburst to karma for being an asshole. People who use dirty money think they can solve everything with cash until a real money printer comes in. Dakai finally dropped the matter, thinking that this was just a case of a blind cat catching a dead rat. He stormed out of the Hang residence, outrightly yelling at Xinguang that he'd die broke. I don't know about that, buddy. Xinguang looked at his cousin, dumb and evil. What a terrifyingly unfortunate combo. He turned to his mom and gently continued on their walk. She's worried that Dakai might retaliate against them, given how furious he seemed. Xinguang actually wants that to happen. He'd like to see what the dumbass can possibly do after the next domino falls. On the way back home, Dakai drove like a madman and wondered if he just saw Manager Kang heading towards Xinguang's house. He dismissed the thought, thinking that such a big shot wouldn't come to a remote place. But he wasn't mistaken. Manager Kang entered the gate of Hang's residence with a wide smile and some meaty gifts in his hands. Not wanting to reveal his connection with a famous big boss to his mom, Xinguang improvised and acted as though he just helped Manager Kang in a trivial matter earlier. Catching what he's putting down, Manager Kang nervously played along, correctly assuming that the young tycoon was hiding his identity from his parents for some reason. He then dragged the manager out and urged his mom to go inside first. Xinguang explained that he's keeping a low profile for now. Manager Kang admired him for doing good deeds without leaving a name. Kang also informed him that the task for today had been handled, and Xinguang praised his efficiency. Halfway through his drive, Hang Dakai received a phone call from Mr. Zhao informing him that he wouldn't be involved in the road repairs anymore. Flabbergasted by the nuke his boss just dropped, Dakai stepped on his brakes, leaving skid marks on the road. He asked for clarification, given that the deal had already been finalized before. He already scheduled his workers, so canceling would result in lost wages. Mr. Zhao simply answered that the construction sector had set some new regulations, and Dakai's team failed to pass the review and hung up the phone. Just like that, his million-yuan deal fell through. Hang Dakai was stunned, his phone dropping from his hand. Mr. Zhao is just doing what Manager Kang and the mysterious benefactor ordered. By nighttime, Han Dakai wrapped up some red envelopes and visited a club that Mr. Zhao frequented to talk some more. He reminded Zhao that if he gets the contract, Zhao can just sit back and collect his share. With 2 women on each arm, Mr. Zhao refused to engage with the fool. Dakai slyly slid the red envelopes on the table and offered to adjust Zhao's cut from 30 to 40%. Finally, the fat bastard opened his eyes. His disdain for Dakai flashed. Confident that the greedy fatty just wanted more percentage, Dakai was sure that he'd get the contract back. He added that everyone knows that qualification reviews are just a formality. He'll even go as far as setting up a new shell company and making everything smooth so that Mr. Zhao receives his cut without trouble. Pissed off, Mr. Zhao slapped the red envelopes off the table. He used to be corrupt, but now he sounds like the most upright citizen that can't be bribed. Dakai awkwardly picked up the envelopes filled with dirty money as the fat bastard berated him for even suggesting that he could be bought. Not knowing what to do, Hang Dakai nervously doubled down and agreed to a 50-50 split even though he was doing all the work. Still, Mr. Zhao didn't budge, acting as though he was offended for being implicated in a dirty deal. His security team kicked Dakai out of the private room, falling face first as his bribe envelopes scattered. In another room at the nightclub, Mr. Zhao put on his most polite face and calmly entered. Inside, Manager Kang and Hang Xingwang have been waiting for his arrival. With the widest and gentlest smile he could muster, Mr. Zhao thanked Mr. Hang Xingwang on behalf of the townspeople who will get better roads thanks to his funding. Inside his mind, Xingwang is quietly cursing this profiteering fat hypocrite for acting like a loyal dog. Xingwang claimed that he was not a noble person and that he couldn't care less about Fuse Village. It's just that his parents are aging, and the roads near their house are abysmal. He looked at the greedy fatty with threatening eyes and asked if this new road project would deteriorate in less than a year like the last one. Feeling that the young man could see through his fakeness, Mr. Zhao assured him that such a thing wouldn't happen. He assured Xingwang that the roads would meet the highest standards. Finally, the system prompt popped up. It praised Xingwang for spending money generously and showing high moral character. He will be rewarded with a bonus. He was wondering why the system had been so quiet these past 2 days. It turns out it was planning something big. Back in his uncle's house, Hang Dakai slammed himself on the couch, deflated and lost. His wife yelled at him for lying around and playing with his phone all day instead of doing chores now that he's unemployed. She ranted that if she had known that he was just a big talker, she would have chosen Hang Xingwang instead. Hearing his wife mention his cousin pissed Dakai off. Not afraid of his death stare, she asserted that even a bird in hand can fly away if the hand is useless. She urged him to go back to Mr. Zhao and kiss his feet instead of showing off and looking like a complete fool in the end. She turned around, threatening to go to Hang Xingwang to seduce her childhood sweetheart. Those pants, though. Before she could get far, Dakai aggressively grabbed her by the collar. He slapped her to the floor and berated her for yapping when she didn't even earn a single penny in this house. While that household is in shambles, Hang Residence is receiving some good news. Xingwang's mom and dad were presented with an eye-popping offer. Manager Kang explained that the road construction would affect their property, requiring the use of 1 square meter of their land. As an apology, they will renovate their house as compensation for overextending. The husband and wife's mouths hung wide open upon hearing such ridiculousness. Manager Kang politely added that they could also add some monetary compensation if the renovation was not enough. The old couple didn't know how to respond. They're essentially giving away 1 square meter of land and cash for a new house. What the hell is going on? Not wanting to be greedy, Mom gracefully accepted the renovations, thinking that luck was just on their side, while Dad excitedly called his son to share the good news. A few days later, Xingwang's mom and dad accompanied him to the nearby bus station. With his stuff packed up, he's heading back to the big city. His parents reminded him that he should take care of himself and look forward to their renovated house when he gets back. Xingwang hugged his mom with a burdenless heart as he said his farewells with a smile. He took the bus to the airport and found himself in the first-class cabin waiting area. Checking his bank account, he made a hefty profit in a single trip. Surprisingly, he ran into his former colleague, Hao Wen. It's a coincidence that they're in the same place at the same time. When Xingwang explained that he went to his hometown to take care of his mom, Hao Wen felt bad. She remembered that he had resigned because the company wouldn't give him leave. Xingwang assured her that it was no big deal as his mom was recovering well. On the other hand, Hao Wen is in the area for a business trip. The company wanted to change her image a bit, so she's been working on a rural revitalization campaign. It's a twist of fate that they're both going back to the city at the same time. She curiously asked if Xingwang had any plans and if he was eyeing any companies to apply to. Realizing that she might be prodding too hard, she apologized and told him that he doesn't have to answer if it's inconvenient. Xingwang confidently asserted that he was not planning to join another company. He's thinking of starting his own business instead. He already arranged and rented a building right across from his old job just to annoy his former boss. Hao Wen was pleased to hear that he was moving up in the world and offered to help if he needed anything. She knows some great editors and photographers in the industry, after all. Suddenly her phone rang, and she hurriedly ran to answer it. In truth, she was starting to get annoyed since manager He Shui had been calling her for the 100th time today. As soon as she picked up, He Shui scolded her for being self-important and ignoring his messages and calls. He ordered Hao Wen to go live right away and compete with a rival streaming team. She already told He Shui that she was about to board the plane, so this change of plans was unfair. Still, the manager insisted that she do what he says. Hao Wen's flight is about to start boarding, and the next flight won't be for another 10 hours, so she might not even get a ticket. Besides, she's been working non-stop. and this is her only rest time. He Shui grinned and retorted that rest time doesn't exist in this industry. While he sits on his ass all day, he wants Hao Wen to ditch the flight and livestream for the next 10 hours, even if she has to do it in the airport. Finally snapping, Hao Wen argued that she's done more than enough for the company. She's been top-ranked for 6 months straight, and she endured a lot of shit. While groping his secretary, He Shui wasn't fazed by her retort. Her contract is still with the company. Until it's terminated, she has to follow orders. He Shui's hands continued wrapping around his secretary while threatening to sue Hao Wen for breach of contract if she didn't go live now. Xingwang walked up to Hao Wen. Based on how heated the conversation was, he knew immediately that He Shui was on the other line. He Shui heard Xingwang's voice and accused Hao Wen of faking her flight, adding that she was probably naked in bed right now. He's saying this even when she already took photos of her round-trip ticket and sent them to the company chat for reporting. Once more, He Shui dared her to go live and prove that she was in the airport instead of spreading her legs in bed. Hao Wen was so agitated and offended she didn't even know what to say. Seeing as he's been roped into this mess, Hang Xingwang grabbed the phone out of Hao Wen's hand. Without pause, Xingwang asked He Shui how much Hao Wen's breach of contract fee was. He also warned the brain-dead bastard that the call is recorded, and he will sue for defamation if necessary. He Shui started going on a rant about how Xingwang wouldn't be able to afford the fee and that he should stop acting rich. Done with the conversation, the young man hung up. That certainly infuriated the nasty manager. Hao Wen looked at Xingwang intently, and she wasn't sure if he was for real when he offered to pay the breach of contract fee. She thinks she doesn't deserve to accept such generous kindness. So she assured him that her company's situation was not too bad. He Shui just gives her trouble from time to time. Furthermore, she knows that the fee will be astronomical and there's no need for such a drastic move. She added that with her savings, she can slowly pay off her breach of contract fee bit by bit. Xingwang assured her that he would be doing this for his own benefit too. You see, he's starting a new media company right across Mu Group. He wanted familiar faces to help him get started, so this is perfect. What could be a better big move than poaching a top-tier talent like Hao Wen? She wasn't expecting to hear that the business he mentioned would be a rival company to Miao Group. She couldn't help but wonder about who Hang Xingwang really was. He explained that he would offer a pure commission salary package model with half of the monthly earnings going towards paying off the breach of contract fee. After it's paid off, they can split the net income to 70 to 30. 30 for him and 70 for Hao Wen. Hearing such a generous offer, Hao Wen became certain that this guy was kind-hearted. Not knowing the industry rates, he asked if the ratio was too low. He doesn't even need cash for himself so he can readjust. Hao Wen explained that the ratio was actually too high, and she felt uncomfortable accepting it. For most live streaming companies, a 50% split would already be considered very good. With the breach of contract fees, even a 20 to 30% split to her would be natural. Xingwang explained that among all the talents in Miao Group, she was the only one who never looked down on him. She even helped him out sometimes and treated him like an equal. It's his turn to return the kindness. Moreover, he has a good eye for people, and he wants to invest in Hao Wen's bright future ahead. So, he's asking her to switch jobs so they can both make money. He genuinely believes that the breach of contract fee is peanuts compared to her potential. This offer is just a form of advancing the payment for her services. Hearing genuine compliments about her work made Hao Wen blush uncontrollably. He's clearly extending a life-saving branch to someone drowning, yet he insists on making it sound like she's doing him a favor. She smiled, looked up, and finally accepted Xingwang's proposition. That day, she didn't go live. Instead, she boarded the plane with Hang Xingwang. Together, they stormed the office building area where Miao Group is located. Inside the Miao Group media office, some employees recognized Xingwang and looked up from their desks. Eventually, they reached He Shui's office. He angrily looked at Hao Wen and accused her of believing the empty words of a man clouded by lust just because they were banging. He threatened to make her regret bringing Xingwang all the way to this office. If he can't afford the fee, she'll be the one left in disgrace. Tired of his tiresome shouting, Xingwang pushed He Shui to stop wasting time and call the legal department. He doesn't have time to argue with this imbecile. He Shui stood up. He heard that Xingwang recently came into some money, so he was flushed with cash. However, he warned that when poor people become rich, they can easily get lost in the sauce. As his former supervisor, He Shui reminded Xingwang that sudden wealth can be gone in a flash. He thinks that this young man will just end up in debt and his life will be ruined after this transaction. Xingwang nonchalantly swiped He Shui's dirty paws away. You see, he views money as a renewable source. The more he spends, the more he'll get. Simple as that. He thinks He Shui is being belligerent and losing his temper because he's afraid that Xingwang really can afford the fee. Exposed that he's biting off more than he can chew, He Shui trembled. He coughed a few times and insisted that he doesn't own the company and that he's not the one losing money, so he doesn't have anything to be afraid of. Xingwang looked at his former supervisor, an ant with a little bit of power, and used it to bully people. He's the type of guy to fall in the future. Infuriated, he called Xingwang a former dog under his command, so he didn't have the right to act so proud. Xingwang asserted that he was a legally employed worker signed under a contract. If He Shui calls him a dog one more time, he will pursue legal action. He reminded He Shui that Meow Group's Clause 5 pertains to the prohibition of the spread of false and defamatory statements that harm another party. This is effective even after contract termination. If Xingwang ever hears a single malicious rumor, he will have the right to prosecute on behalf of Hao Wen. Not long after that, the legal team representative led them to a conference room to sign the necessary documents. Xingwang could tell that Hao Wen still felt uneasy. He Shui continued his vapid yapping, warning Hao Wen of tying her career to a person who just came into some money. Hearing his irritating voice pushed Hao Wen to finally sign her name on the dotted line. Finally, she breached her contract on paper. He Shui was shocked that his intimidation tactics didn't work. He nervously asked for the payment, warning Xingwang that he shouldn't run off and leave this mess for Hao Wen. The imbecile kept on yapping when Xingwang had already sent the payment a minute ago. He has tens of millions in cash flow lying around, so it was easy. Tired of dealing with this bullshit, he shooed He Shui away to check on the finance department for confirmation. Xingwang walked over to the penthouse mirror. He likes being in upper management just from the wonderful view alone. This is the start of a long and prosperous future for Xingwang's new business venture. For this transaction, the system congratulated him for understanding the true essence of money. From not looking at price tags, he's graduated to contract termination without asking the cost. He was rewarded with 99,999,999. It's about time to take down his old company. When the new business partners exited the office building, a familiar face called out to them. Wearing a revealing outfit, Zhan Qingqing hurriedly caught up to them. She heard the news that Hao Wen had resigned, so she was wondering if they'd be able to meet again. Hao Wen hesitated to answer, and Xingwang interjected that it wouldn't be a problem at all. After all, he bought the opposite office building. Zhan Qingqing can even come over to have lunch in their cafeteria if she wants. Qingqing was dumbfounded by his words, as though what he said didn't make a lick of sense. Refusing to elaborate further, Xingwang took an urgent phone call. Looking at the name of the caller, he can't seem to remember someone named Li Wanying. When he answered, a sweet voice sounded, notifying him that his property certificate was ready. He committed to coming over to pick up the certificate soon. With everything that's happening today, he almost forgot to inspect the villa he just got. He urged Hao Wen to take some time to rest and plan their business, while he takes care of some things. She cheerfully responded with a blush and smile. She's just telling Qingqing about how Xingwang paid for her contract termination fee without batting an eye. Qingqing can't believe that the former office errand boy is actually a wealthy tycoon. You truly can't judge the book by its cover. Xingwang's destination is a lavish real estate building. Li Wanying is on a call with her employees, asking them to be alerted for the arrival of a VIP client. Welcoming this VIP is crucial for their office's performance, so everything must be perfect. The floor manager on the other line assured his boss that they would arrange an appropriate reception. He ordered his men to gather around, and the neatly dressed employees followed. The floor manager informed everyone of Mr. Hang's arrival, the man who bought the 300 million yuan villa. Everyone must present themselves well to maintain the reputation of Red Cheng Real Estate. He turned to a young woman, a new hire, and reminded her not to be careless in the presence of an important guest. In turn, she asked Manager Wang if they had a photo of the VIP so they don't greet the wrong person. Manager Wang boastfully explained that they are dealing with a mysterious tycoon, so photos are a no-go. But he's certain that a rich man like that will have a grand presence that will light the place up. He criticized her for lacking such basic judgment, and she apologized. Manager Wang ran his fingers on a wall and felt dust build up. He yelled at the cleaning team to get to work until the place didn't have a speck of dust left. Outside, Hang Xingwang's taxi pulled over. He's arrived at his destination. Looking at the exterior of the real estate office, he was impressed. As expected of Red Cheng, they really are the top brand in Swan Bay. Just the sales office itself looked lavish. He noticed that suited-up men lined up outside and wondered if the company chairman was coming or something. Since the men weren't paying close attention, he strolled past them and entered the office. It's a big sales office, yet there's not a single employee inside. He's starting to think that this promised villa might be a bit suspicious. He looked at the miniature model of the neighborhood and smiled. The landscaping is top-notch, and each house has pools. He wondered which villa was his. The lively female employee approached Xingwang with a smile and offered to show him around. Manager Wang called the girl named Irene over, beckoning him away from Xingwang. He whispered that they weren't supposed to receive other clients today, So how could they let a random young man enter? Manager Wang believes in his calculation that the VIP client will arrive soon, and if he sees someone else inside, he might feel disrespected. Irene argued that turning away other customers doesn't seem like the right move. He called her a foolish girl and walked up to handle the young man eyeing the miniature neighborhood. By his estimation, this kid is probably another brokey who dared to enter the Swan Bay sales office. They must get rid of him quickly. Manager Wang walked up with a judgy expression. He told Xing Wang to know his place and stop wasting people's time by looking and gawking if he couldn't afford their offerings. Right from the jump, Xing Wang didn't like the cut of this bowl cut's tongue. Manager Wang called Irene over to clean up more dust that he noticed and sweep out the trash. Xing Wang asked how he would know if the properties were good if he didn't look. Running out of patience, the manager commented on his cheap-ass look. Manager Wang asserted that their houses go for $300,000 per square meter, so the young man should just stop embarrassing himself. Our boy is starting to get seriously turned off by the abysmal customer service. Given that the employees judge based on appearances, he's thinking that the high prices might not be worth it. Manager Wang called him a bitter broke ass in response. Xing Wang's phone rang, and a familiar name appeared on the screen once more. It was Li Wanying checking in to see if he had arrived at the offices and asking him to direct his questions to Manager Wang. Wang overheard the phone call and recognized the familiar voice on the other line. Xing Wang tattled that Manager Wang called him unworthy of buying a house and an embarrassment. He threatened to cancel the transaction and that he'd just buy a property elsewhere. The Big Boss, stood from her chair and begged Xing Wang to wait a moment and she'd be right there. This is either a misunderstanding or Manager Wang has finally lost his mind. Running as fast as she can while trying hard to keep Xing Wang from leaving, the Big Boss rushed. She reached her car and instructed her driver to hurry into the Swan Bay sales office quickly. Miss Boss cannot fathom what that fool, Wang Sheng, is doing. If this mysterious rich client gets offended, there will be consequences. She was clear in her brief that the VIP must be treated with utmost care. After her phone call with the boss, Manager Wang was sweating bullets as he assured her that he'll look into the case. The dumbass turned to Xing Wang and maintained his hostility, trying to chase him out of the office. He still thinks that the young man can't possibly be the VIP they're waiting for. Xing Wang sighed in disappointment. He thought the imbecile recognized his superior's voice from his phone call earlier. He even aggressively scolded Irene for not doing her job properly. He's worried about losing his job while continuing to dig his grave. She was bullied to tears. Irene was just doing her job, and she was being reprimanded for it. This imbecile went as far as pushing Xing Wang and calling him a bad-for-business nobody. Finally, the Big Boss arrived to make things right. Seeing the situation, she yelled at Wang Sheng with utmost rage. With a nasty look on his face, he continued trying to chase the young man out. When he saw his boss, he smiled and tried to explain the problem. She did not spare another glance at the imbecile, walking past him like he didn't exist. Wang Sheng thought his superior must be angry at the poor kid lounging around. Imagine his surprise when his boss apologetically bowed to Xing Wang and politely introduced herself as Li Wanying, Deputy General Manager of Hongcheng Real Estate. With a terrified look on her face, she sought forgiveness for the unsatisfactory experience and Wang Heng's disrespect. In a matter of a few seconds, the fool looked like he aged a decade. Xing Wang just stared at her with resolute eyes. Li Wanying promised to strengthen their management to prevent such a blatant display of discrimination in the future. Irene lifted her head in shock upon learning that the young man was the VIP they'd been preparing for. The deputy general manager vowed that they treat everyone who comes to view or buy properties with equal respect and sincerely hopes that Xing Wang will give them another chance. Wang Heng felt as though his worldview is shattering. How could a rich person who can buy a 300 million yuan property look so young, poor, and without any grand presence? When Li Wanying turned to her dumbass employee, the apologetic look turned to a venomous one. She told this dumbass to never underestimate a client, but he ignored her words. It was at that moment Wang Heng knew he was done for. The idiot must have gotten arrogant just from selling luxurious properties. If that's the case, he doesn't need to come to work starting tomorrow. He's fucking fired. Wang Heng immediately dropped to his knees to plead for forgiveness. He yapped about some sob story of having elderly parents and young children to support. All of these evil bastards have the same backstory, man. He crawled over to Li Wanying and hugged her knees as he pleaded not to get fired. He should have been thrown in jail right then and there. Li Wanying is running a business, not a charity. She's willing to be vicious when needed. Seeing as begging his boss won't cut it, Wang Heng crawled toward Xing Wang to admit that he was wrong to judge by appearances and begged for one more chance. Irene trembled in fear. She's afraid that she might be next on the chopping block. Contrary to what Irene feared, Xing Wang shot him a glance, openly praised her for her services, and recommended her for the newly vacant manager position. Wanting to please the VIP, Li Wanying agreed with a smile and invited Xingwang to view the property. She jumped from being bullied for not doing her job correctly into being the manager. As Li Wanying and the young man walked out, the new and former manager stared blankly. Realizing that she just got the fastest promotion of her life, Irene couldn't help but think that she must be dreaming. Being cheeky, the system rewarded Xingwang with 1 heart for upholding justice against discrimination. He inwardly thought that he preferred practical rewards instead of hearts. However, the system explained that these personal compliments must not be underestimated, for they can help at crucial moments. He smiled at the system's playfulness. After a little bit of walking, Li Wanying courteously escorted him to the grand courtyard leading to his new villa's entrance. The golden and ornate gate, peppered with beautiful flowers, automatically opened. Lined up at the entrance were rows of beautiful young women and tough-looking young men. They are the villa maids and butlers responsible for the master's security and property management. In unison, they greeted their new master. Li Wanying led Xingwang inside. They'll set up the automatic gate recognition system shortly. While she's settling some formalities with a butler, Hang Xingwang surveyed his new property. With a briefcase in hand, she informed him that all the property certificates and relevant documents had been prepared for review. He looked at the case and could barely believe his eyes. For a country bumpkin like him, he's never even seen such an expensive luxury home. When Li Wanying opened the briefcase, the leather-bound documents appeared. He took the compilation of certificates and looked at it intently. All he could think of was how premium it felt. With not much else to do with the bundle of papers, he stored it back in the case and asked Li Wanying to lead the way and continue the tour. She misunderstood his ignorance and thought that Xingwang was just on another level when it came to wealth, and that he didn't even need to check the property deed. Her assessment of him increased, and she politely led Xingwang inside the massive villa. Li Wanying boasted that they specially hired top landscapers to design the private garden. The interior decor, on the other hand, was created by a renowned international designer. Her view of Xingwang continued to increase by the second. She thinks he's a low-key tycoon who treats money like dirt, hailing from some hidden powerful family of some sort. She thinks he dresses casually to avoid appearing too high profile and getting kidnapped. Xingwang assessed the beautiful landscaping and considered adding another garden plot to plant some cabbage and eggplant for his parents. As expected of a top luxury residential area, everything is grandiose. But he prefers practical crops like string beans and bitter gourds. He's truly a country bumpkin. Seeing him frown at the garden, Li Wanying assured the VIP that she could help contact the designers for further modifications. He'll give the idea some thought first. He can definitely see a lot of areas to be redesigned. There are just too many impractical and luxurious things that his parents would not be comfortable with. Hearing his thoughts, the system popped up and rewarded him 99,999 yuan for finding reasons to dislike a 300 million yuan mansion in just 1 minute. He even unlocked a new skin, a cartoonish pot. The system explained that as the host enters a new life stage, so does the system itself. Li Wanying becomes more and more confident with her assessment, seeing as the young tycoon looks unsatisfied with the perfect garden. She reckoned that his refined taste from his prestigious background must be hard to please. She praised Xingwang for acquiring the district's crown jewel at such a young age, wishing him well with his limitless future. She then informed him that her company's CEO promised to pay a visit upon returning from a business trip. Xingwang politely declined the CEO's visit, telling Li Wanying that he didn't spend that much, so it was not worth making such a fuss. With a polite smile, she honored his wishes and vowed to do her duty and to continue supporting him. Inside, she was yelling at him for calling 300 million not worth making a fuss over. Even for her, it's rare to see this caliber of rich people. It made her even more curious about what mysterious family Xingwang must belong to. Finally, after walking for minutes, they arrived at the ornate white house accentuated by gold and blue. She opened the gate, bowed, and invited Xingwang to enter his new home. From the property in front of Xingwang's, a sultry voice asked her butler who brought the crown jewel villa of the neighborhood. The butler, Uncle Zhang, answered that the property was bought by a young man named Hang, who was in his early 20s. His boss, a delicately beautiful woman, turned her head in surprise. Uncle Zhang asked his young miss if he should look into the new neighbor's background. The young miss did not authorize the proposed investigation for someone who can casually buy a 300 million yuan villa, which is certainly an extraordinary person. If they investigate, they might offend the mysterious young man. She instructed her butler to prepare a suitable gift for when they pay Mr. Hang a visit another day. After 3 months of preparation, Xingwang and Hao Wen celebrated the grand opening of their new company. Duojin Media is finally open for business. For his opening speech, Xingwang thanked director Hao Wen for taking charge of training their new talents over the past 3 months. He assured his employees that their hard work would be met with rewards. The beautiful women trained to be their new live streamers cheered for their big boss. Xingwang pulled Hao Wen from a shitty situation and gave her a new career path. She couldn't help but look at him softly. You see, 3 months ago, Hao Wen was informed that she wouldn't have to live stream for the new media company. Xingwang believed that good steel must be used on the cutting edge. What they lack is a good staff for recruitment and training of new talent. Hao Wen will fit perfectly with her experience. Half of the streaming profits of new streamers will go directly to her, and she thought it would be too much. But she will be the founding heroine of Duojin. Her expertise in the field and the streaming process will surely come in handy. She knows how to attract attention, and that's infinitely valuable. Of course, once the company stabilizes, she can switch back in front of the camera if she wants. After hearing Xingwang's explanation, she firmly decided to stay behind the scenes and cultivate a new generation. Back to the present. On a random workday morning, He Shui came across Duojin Media's account. He was surprised to see that they signed quite a few up-and-coming independent streamers. He believed that starting from scratch in this day and age is just a failure waiting to happen. He Shui is conceded that these newbies don't have what it takes to compete with Miao Group. Suddenly, He Shui's boss, a wannabe gangster with weak-ass gold chains and gold teeth, barged into his office to confront him about Duojin Media across their office building. Shui's arrogance vanished, and he offered his seat to his cousin boss and assured the wannabe gangster that he was already handling the matter. With a grim smile, the boss ordered him to show who the real big dog in the live streaming industry was. Like a good lapdog, He Shui wagged his tail and got to work. Meanwhile, Xingwang is steadily settling into his new role as CEO. He's currently browsing interior design samples for his home, and none was up to his standard. He believes that his 300 million mansion has to be luxurious and creative. A knock interrupted his browsing, and Hao Wen exasperatedly walked in to inform him that their streamers were getting spammed with PK invitations from Miao Group talents. These talents all have millions of followers. On their workgroup chat, the Duojin streamers are starting to worry and are unsure as to what to do with the invitations. They're anxious about losing and getting humiliated. But Xingwang recognized this shameless bullying as Miao Group's old trick. They're trying to make a big show while subtly encouraging fans to cyberbully small streamers. It's a clear tactic to show how big of a powerhouse they are, but they picked the wrong opponent this time. Since PK challenges are just a gift revenue contest, Xingwang passed the order to accept the invitations. Hao Wen was concerned that Xingwang would pay for gifts and rockets for their new streamers out of his own pocket. It might be a bit extravagant, but it's a straightforward path to win. Hao Wen suddenly recalled the club incident where a user named Brother Wang helped her in a PK battle. Xingwang is completely bought in on the idea that money is only money when it's spent. If it stays in your hand, it's just numbers. Still, Hao Wen advised him to spend wisely since over half of the gifts go to channel fees and platform cuts. She had already seen him pay tens of millions in penalty fees and rocket gifts for her. Logic dictates that he can't keep spending like this. However, there is no hint of worry on Xingwang's face. He views this challenge not as wasted money, but as an investment. Since they're a new company, they need all the hype they can get. If they handle this situation well, they will immediately cement their name as a real player in the industry. Imagine small streamers overtaking those with millions of followers. The buzz generated will be sensational. Moreover, he trusts Hao Wen and their talents in creating content. If they retain most of the new viewers that will flow in, they'll run away with a massive win. As for the finances, there's no cause for worry. Xingwang will personally make sure to inject funds steadily and securely. Hao Wen finally understood that this guy was just built different. She also trusts his experience as a previous Miao Group employee. Finally, Hao Wen faced her talents. All of them were waiting for orders as to how they should proceed. They still think that accepting would result in certain defeat. But Hao Wen pulled the trigger and tasked them to take on the PK challenges. Back in his office, Xingwang patiently waited for the digital war to start. The production level of both Duojin and Miao Group streams was stellar as gifts, rockets, and stream boosts flooded in on the opposing side. In the early hours of the battle, Duojin was getting completely stomped. Looking at online forums, more and more fans are starting to take note of the live streaming war happening between the two companies. As expected, Miao Group fans are cyberbullying Xingwang's girls. Not minding the early hours of the war, Xingwang's mind is still on his mansion renovations. Hao Wen entered his office to give him the live report of how badly they were getting crushed. But they've got multiple accounts ready to fire with millions of funds loaded up. Xingwang chose not to rush, waiting for the right timing while they conserve strength for a bit longer. They will wait for the peak of attention. When the mocking reaches the highest point, they will nuke Miao Group in one wave. The pressure is getting to Hao Wen. Xingwang understands that their streamer's mindset is also critical, so they can trickle in some rockets to reassure them and maintain peak performance. In the Miao Group offices, He Shui had already busted out the celebratory alcohol, thinking that they had this war in the bag. With an arrogant smile, he felt pleased with himself, even if he lost Hao Wen as their top talent. But his boss thinks destroying a small-time company is not even worth celebrating. Although they got tens of millions in breach of contract fees, he's still a bit bitter about losing Hao Wen. She was their biggest cash cow after all. His phone buzzed, and a text informing him that Hao Wen was now working on Meow Group flashed on the screen. Incensed, he confronted He Shui as to why he never heard of this development. Of course, the bastard minimized the situation, saying that Hao Wen got sweet-talked by some rich guy to break her contract and thinks she's a big boss now. Although irritated, his cousin's boss piped down and ordered him to snag a certain victory in today's battle. Suddenly, another employee barged into the office to inform them that all 10 Duojin streams were being flooded with rockets and massive gifts. He Shui was reminded of Hao Wen's clutch performance a few months ago. At that time, only a single stream was flooded. He Shui assuaged his cousin boss that this was just a classic case of fake boosting. Furthermore, they've already made 30 million today. There's no way Duojin can catch up. With veins popping in his forehead, the boss glared at He Shui to prevent defeat. The employee glanced at his phone and all color drained from his face. After the first wave, another flood of rockets and gifts bridged the gap. Seeing the screen covered with innumerable rocket gifts, He Shui and his boss were taken aback. Finally, the boss ordered He Shui to pull out the big guns and crush Duojin. Back in Heng Xingwang's office, Hao Wen looked at him like a madman as he tapped on the gift button with unbelievable speed. While he's dumping money on his own company's stream, the system continues to match and even surpass all his tips. Hundreds of millions continuously flowed into his bank account, his infinite money glitch in full swing. At this point, they were already winning, but Xingwang refused to slow down. The opponent's PK stream health bars were already bugging out. Xingwang was sending rockets in bulk, 500 per tap to be specific. He's not even switching accounts. With his big spender Wang account, he exhibited outrageous spending beyond what a rich second generation could afford. With a casual brag, Xingwang increased the rate of gifts even further. Seeing this, Hao Wen believes that this goes beyond just showing off. After sending countless rockets, Xingwang stood up from the couch and reminded Hao Wen of Duojin's goal. They must become untouchable, which no other top players can compete with. Now that the W is in the bag, it's Hao Wen's turn to boost the team's morale for a victory lap. With this victory, the Meow Group streamers must change their usernames. As icing on the cake, Xingwang picked up his iPad and finally found the perfect interior design he was looking for. He hated purple sandalwood, French vintage style, or any other bougie designs. He wants a room to look like a freaking nightclub. Licking his lips, he checked his bank account to see how much he made. After counting the digits, the total revenue came up to more than 10 billion. Bro is drowning in cash. In various mainstream media offices across the country, journalists are clamoring for information about the mysterious Duojin media company. They dropped everything they were covering and focused all manpower on getting first-hand information on the up-and-coming industry titan. In the streaming platform company, the bigwigs have convened to discuss the rise of Duojin, and the streamers signed under them. Most of these new talents gained about 2 million followers on average overnight. The CEO of the platform wants to negotiate with Duojin personally. Inside said company's streaming room, the Duojin talents collaborated to thank all their new fans for their support. Once the stream ended, all of them were exhausted from a long day of streaming and earning millions. Seeing their CEO enter the room, the Duojin girls surrounded Xingwang with wide smiles plastered on their faces. He broke the news that today's revenue will be split according to contract ratios. With this windfall, they're basically millionaires now. The system playfully rewarded him with 500 yuan for his generosity. The amount of fluctuation inwardly annoyed Xingwang. Outside, Hao Wen saw Xingwang treating his employees big-heartedly and smiled. Meanwhile, in Meow Group media, the boss is furious, and He Shui is terrified of what would happen to him for this colossal fuck-up. The online forums have quickly latched onto the hype, and they are loving the new streamers from Duojin. This online buzz continued throughout the day, long after the PK battles had concluded. They praised Duojin for the bold win, and added salt to the wound of Meow Group. Duojin media also demanded the penalty to be honored, tagging them incessantly and mass publishing live stream clips to change their usernames. The air in the office was heavy and dark. The wannabe gangster with ugly chains looked like he wanted to murder someone. Once the employee left, he smacked He Shui across his cheek, sending the lapdog hurtling to the ground. What He Shui called a small wave of gifts amounted to 500 million. Now, they're the laughingstock of the industry. He Shui protested that they also made some money in the challenge. Hearing this made the boss even more furious. He blamed everything on He Shui's incompetence. If Hao Wen had been still in their company, he believes that this 500 million would have been in their pockets by now. He's not completely off the mark. Since that sponsor wanted to support Hao Wen so much, All of that cash flow could have been theirs. Still speaking like an ass, He Shui argued that Xingwang was just some broke loser before. The boss reminded him not to look down on the poor. Besides, He Shui's blindness failed to see someone with great wealth and nobility. He treated their biggest cash cow like shit until she left, and now, they're reaping what they sow. He Shui cheekily retorted that the boss also signed off on everything he did. That earned him a painful ass-kicking as he was chased out of the office. Back in Duojin Media, Haowen privately asked Xingwang if spending like this was really fine. She did the math, and out of the 5 billion in seed money, they'll only get 1.8 billion back. After splitting this between the streamers, it's a massive loss. In Xingwang's perspective, they didn't even spend that much. Haowen simply can't grasp the world of the rich. In reality, Xingwang only recharged 200 million. The rest of the gifts poured in from customers recharged after the uptick in viewers. The platform also matched their 200 million recharge with 100 million in gifts for later use. Rounding up, they barely spent anything. Although his rich guy math didn't make any sense, Haowen just quietly accepted. She had never expected to hear Hang Xingwang, the production guy, calling 200 million nothing. Xingwang is just sacrificing 1 to gain 10,000. They are currently getting tons of media coverage. Other companies try hard to spend countless resources for such publicity and promotion for just a single streamer, and they do it for all their talents in one fell swoop. He had already assured Haowen that her future would shine brightly. Xingwang thanked her for training streamers who can seize massive opportunities. As the saying goes, success breeds success. When someone blows up, people will naturally flock to them and appreciate all sorts of good qualities, creating a positive feedback loop. Going forward, their rise will be much easier. Xingwang has big plans. He'll invest in variety shows and TV dramas, pushing his girls into the biggest spotlights. Duojin Media won't stop at being just a streaming company. As if on cue, Xingwang's phone rang. The renovation company he contacted finally called back. With bright eyes, he left the company's reins in Haowen's capable hands while he took care of his house renovation. She'll take charge of bonus calculations. Xingwang reminded her not to be stingy and to include herself by taking a cut for all her hard work. Xingwang's recent philosophy is that if everyone is happy, everyone will make more money. So Duojin won't tolerate any shady financial nonsense. With a wide smile and a deep blush, Haowen saw him off. Inside Xingwang's exorbitant Swan Bay villa, construction work had started for the gaudy renovation. Instead of leaving it up to the team he hired, Xingwang himself led the construction job. Right then and there, he noticed a dashing old butler standing. It was Uncle Zhang from the neighboring mansion. In his hand was a welcome gift bag. Inside, there were some products from their company. This is Xingwang's first time seeing a true blue butler from a wealthy family. Truly dignified and refined. That gave him the idea of getting one for himself. Taking off his work gloves, he walked towards the dazzling butler. He apologized for the messiness of the place and the dirt around his clothes. Being polite, the butler also apologized for coming over unannounced and humbly handed the welcome gift bag. Since they're neighbors and will likely interact often, it's good to start on the right foot. Xingwang liked the butler's courteousness, as expected of a wealthy neighborhood. The gift box was labeled Premium Wild Mountain Ginseng, and it seemed quite extravagant. The case itself had a gold and silver design. He shook the old man's hand and promised to come by and return the kindness once he was done with construction work. By noon, his construction team had taken their break, but Xingwang was still going at it. Mind you, this guy has 10 billion in the bank. His phone rang, and a familiar voice reminded him that their class was having a reunion this coming weekend. To entice him to come, the guy added that Xingwang's crush from university is coming. He was not pleased with this phone call. Class reunions are just bragging contests. Back in college, Hang Xingwang was the worst off in his class. He was mocked for his lowly background, just a background decoration everywhere he went. This time is different, so he readily accepted the invitation. The guy on the other line was shocked to hear such a quick confirmation, thinking that it must be for the girl. Meanwhile, in the neighboring Swan Bay mansion, Ping Zhaozhao's villa, the butler is reporting back to his young miss. He called Xingwang a gentle and polite young man who didn't look down on a mere butler and showed respect instead. Xingwang even got his hands dirty during the renovation of his villa and got along with the workers. He took off his dirty gloves before taking the gift too. The young miss took in her butler's evaluation quietly. Her silent contemplation was interrupted by someone's arrival. When she turned around, she saw a dazzling couple. A handsome man and a gorgeous beauty in a figure-hugging white dress. The young miss turned to the man and reprimanded him for bringing people into the house. He clapped back at Ping Zhaozhao's nasty attitude, calling the girl beside her his future wife. He swore that he was done having fun and he was ready to settle down. The blonde woman named Lin Mengxi cried upon hearing Zhao Zhao's remark. The young miss could not care less as she harumphed dismissively and turned around. Lin Mengxi played the role of a damsel in distress, telling her lover that she didn't want to affect his relationship with his sister. He assured his girl that Zhao Zhao was just being dramatic and fussy. Hearing their lovey-dovey dialogue irritated the young miss. Her brother called her jealous for settling down since their grandfather said that to inherit the family fortune, she needed to get married. The young miss confidently turned around and looked at her pathetic brother. She's only 20, she has plenty of time. Besides, she's not as opportunistic as a certain someone who's willing to lose face just for some inheritance money. Moreover, it's not that easy to enter the Ping family. Marriage depends on whether grandpa approves or not, and that old man is hard to please. Outside the high-end Shenwei restaurant, a few cars parked for a gathering. Hao Wen dropped Xingwang off and promised to pick him up in an hour after running some errands. As he fixed his cheap hoodie, Xingwang can already see himself making some money today. At the restaurant's entrance, a few people have already gathered. He saw some familiar faces, like those of his previous classmates from university. A blonde girl wearing a red latex dress spotted him get out of a big C car that cost 8 million, her eyes twinkling. The dudes immediately chided that there was no way that Xingwang could afford something so expensive. They think he must have found a sugar mommy or something. They added that this theoretical sugar mommy must be an old granny since no one in their right mind would pick Hang Xingwang. The blonde lady proposed that Xingwang might be selling his hole to an old man instead. Full ditty. Overhearing their chatter, Xingwang played along and asked them if they were jealous since they couldn't land a rich lady of their own. Blondie was the first one to snap back, asserting that she doesn't need to cling to anyone for money. If that's the case, he asked this girl why she pushed out the original wife of a factory director to take her place. He certainly touched a sore topic for her. A few moments later, another car pulled up in front of the restaurant entrance. Surprisingly, Lin Mengxi and the young master of the Ping family exited the vehicle all lovey-dovey. Xingwang's classmates erupted in cheers for the goddess and her protector. They've only ever seen young Master Ping in interviews before. One of Xingwang's classmates teased him for coming because of the goddess, only to see her with a young master. Ignoring the teasing, Xingwang respectfully extended a greeting to Mengxi. She awkwardly smiled and replied with hello. Xingwang turned to his classmates and excused himself to grab a seat inside while they continued sucking up to that Ping dude. As he entered, they didn't even try to hide their disdainful words against Xingwang. Young Master Ping bid farewell to his sweetheart, and Mengxi gave him a flying kiss. He drove away, and the bottom feeders of the class stuck around waiting for their goddess. They showered her with praise, asking her when the wedding would be, and calling her beautiful in multiple ways. Mengxi reveled in the compliments and invited everyone to go inside. Inside the restaurant's private room, the clinging of beer glasses echoed. There was day drinking and karaoke. It was a proper reunion party. While everyone was having a jolly good time, Xingwang sat on the couch alone. One of his pretentious classmates is humble, bragging about how he only managed to acquire one floor of a building opposite the city government. The NPCs around ate it up. They knew that properties in that area were worth tens of millions. Meanwhile, the girls flocked around Mengxi while she told them about her upcoming engagement. She plans to be a housewife to the prestigious Ping family. They whispered about the 5-carat diamond engagement ring on her finger, jealous that she landed such a big fish. In her mind, Mengxi is calling her batchmates a bunch of poor and jealous bitches while maintaining a delicate expression. Meanwhile, Xingwang's gaze is fixed on his phone. He's been so busy lately that he almost forgot he donated a hospital building back in the county. Seeing the progress photos and charts, he smiled. His batchmates finally ran out of topic and turned their attention to the loner sitting on the couch looking at his phone. They reckon he might be sad since the goddess is getting married. Not even lifting his head to look at them, Xingwang courteously extended his congratulations to Mengxi with a smile. Out of nowhere, one of the losers called him a wage slave making 5,000 a month, so he must be working on his phone in the middle of the reunion. Xingwang finally pocketed his phone and admitted that he was indeed working overtime. Working to do something to make the world a better place, that is. Hearing his bold statement, his batchmates laughed. They called him crazy, an immature kid who had gone cuckoo from working a dead-end job for 2 years. They told him to switch to just work on Uber Eats or some shit. Xingwang looked at these parasites with disdain. Seeing his vicious expression, the weak-willed bullies backtracked their statements, calling them jokes. His eyes glittered with confidence as he ate their insults. Tired of dealing with these small fries, he motioned to take his leave to go back to help with his villa renovations. His batchmates told him not to leave since the food was about to arrive. He prodded him for information about his new house, as they were not done teasing him yet. They added that if he got a house in Sang City, he must have starved himself for 2 years to barely afford a parking spot in the worst part of town. Xingwang refused to engage with the idiots, but Wang Duoduo accused him of dodging his share of the bill. Annoyed, he insisted that he'd just pay once the bill was posted on the group chat. She added that they're in one of the city's most high-end establishments, not some roadside restaurant, and no one is willing to cover for him. With a sigh, he sent 10,000 to the restaurant's account in hopes of getting out of this hellhole. They mocked him for sending all his savings and going broke just to put on a show and impress them. Wang Duoduo compounded this by telling him to stop showing off and get his money back as his share won't cost 10,000. Mengxi jumped in on the action and promised to cover his share so he could take his 10,000 back. She's essentially calling him broke like the others. The goddess was very pleased with herself. This is a perfect chance to show how beautiful and kind-hearted she really is. Xingguang can see through fake niceness. He overheard this witch calling him a simp that was not even worthy of carrying her shoes earlier. He insisted that he does not need any help paying for his share, and he certainly doesn't need anyone to cover for him. The other ladies yelled at him for being shameless and ungrateful. Like an expert, Mengxi softly defended Xingguang backhandedly, calling him a struggling man who always acts on impulse. Xingguang finally snapped. He called him out for acting like a divine savior. Since they were once classmates, he didn't want to escalate the situation, but none of these people had shame. So, he declared that he'd pay for everyone's meal. One of these maggots pulled up a gold VIP card and explained that Xingguang was not even qualified to pay, since only VIP members could pay the bill for a VIP room. Xingguang turned to the attendant and instructed him to call the manager for the bill, but his request was denied due to the manager's business. Trying to instigate, his VIP classmate urged the attendant to call the manager for him. The shameless attendant immediately bent over backward for the respected VIP customer. The VIP dude was just eager to see Hang Xingguang make a fool of himself in front of everyone. Moments later, the slicked-back manager entered the room with a serious expression as if he was disturbed. Xingguang asked if it was true that only VIPs could pay the bill, and the manager curtly confirmed. The bullies laughed at him, calling him a country bumpkin that doesn't even know how Shenwei restaurant works. You see, a minimum spend of 500,000 is required to qualify for the card. Xingguang turned to the pieces of trash with colorful hairs and asked the manager how much it would cost to kick everyone out of the establishment. The manager refused to answer his question, upholding the values of their business. The howling laughter became louder as his classmates mocked him for acting like a big shot in a drama. In response, Xingguang ominously offered 10 million for his request. The manager felt as though thunder just struck his mind upon hearing the figure. His nonchalant expression faded. The laughing stopped as Hang Xingguang casually walked back to the table. He picked on the food and put up 10 million so he could enjoy some peace and quiet while he ate. Mr. Manager gave him a discerning glance. He doesn't believe that a guy with such a cheap outfit would have that kind of money. Besides, no one in their right mind would spend that much on a meal. The manager angrily scolded him to stop joking. Xingguang pulled out his card and ordered the man to just swipe the damn thing. Seeing his card, the bullies jumped in to criticize its color. They mocked that he should carry at least a black card if he really does have that kind of dough. With the beaten state of that flashy card, they doubt he even has $1,000 on it. Just a minute ago, he was rushing to leave. Now, he's sitting down to eat. Everybody jumped in on mocking him for showing off and doing a horrible job at it. They continued verbally trashing him, while another attendant nervously swiped the card on the reader. Much to her surprise, the transaction was a success. The payment for 10 million really did go through. The manager was shocked. His mouth hung open in surprise. Xingguang's classmates were starting to think that they were the ones who were crazy. Without batting an eye, he followed up on his request to clear these brokies out of the place so he could dine in peace. The manager changed his tone, completely subservient to his demands. He turned to the rowdy crowd and firmly instructed them to leave the premises at once. For this stunt of spending 10 million for lunch, the system rewarded Xingguang with another 20 million. Mr. VIP still found a way to turn the situation against Xingguang, guilting him for disregarding everyone's reputation. Although nervous, other parasites dogpiled on the sentiment, asking Xingguang if he's not afraid of making enemies. Putting a piece of meat in his mouth, he clapped back. They don't even qualify as enemies. From the start, he knew he was invited to be the punching bag to be mocked and ridiculed, so they could make themselves feel big and satisfy their vanity. Xingguang dared them to spend 10 million like he had just done. If anyone can pay more than him, he'll gladly leave without a word. He's open to making this a contest. The parasites tried to make themselves feel better. They just have to find another place to gather while Xingguang is out of 10 million. Suddenly, someone entered the VIP room, offering 10 million and 1 yuan and telling Xingguang to leave. It was none other than the goddess's knight in shining armor, young Master Ping. She immediately ran up to him as he declared that his fiancée was his utmost priority. Every parasite in the room lit up upon seeing young Master Ping ready to bail them out. Xingguang smiled. This guy is clearly trying to spite him, but he'll gladly go band for band with the only grandson of the Ping family. He could not help but think as though he heard the surname before. He remembered the butler who delivered gifts back then. Seeing Xinguang silently pondering, young Master Ping mockingly asked if he only had 10 million to his name. Mengshi leaned closer to her cash cow and expertly played the role of a sympathetic lady that Ping loved so much. This was originally a matter between classmates, but if an outsider insists on interfering, he's open to playing along. In fact, he's thankful that a dumbass rich kid jumped on his challenge. He didn't expect another dumbass to show up to help him make some more money. Xinguang confidently lifted his card and casually added 5 million. The manager was hyperventilating at this point. He's suddenly caught in the middle of a fight between wealthy gods, and he's profiting without doing anything. Just like before, young Master Ping added 1 yuan to the pot. Without hesitation, Xinguang upped his offer to 20 million. Ping continued with his 1 yuan raise while the attendant swiftly swiped the card. For applying PK livestream logic to real life, the system rewarded Xinguang with 50 million bucks and encouraged him to go all out, and the system will be his greatest support. Mengshi lovingly looked at her soon-to-be husband and felt confident that she had made the right choice. Xinguang raised the bid to 30 million, but he's starting to get bored at the slow pace of the increase at this point. The parasitic classmates, as fine as some of them may be, continuously threw their lot in the corner of young Master Ping to raise the stakes, calling Xinguang a little man even though he's out here throwing tens of millions in their faces. Meanwhile, young Master Ping had gone silent, hesitating whether he should throw away this much dough just to show off in front of his girl. He refused to show it on his face, but inside, he regretted running into a crazy guy dumping so much money for a single meal. Since he's already planning to invest in this restaurant, he'll just swipe for now and talk to the board about some equity later. Still, even for someone like him, he can't just dump 30 million like it's nothing. By the looks of it, Xinguang can continue doing this pointless bidding war all day. In the middle of the two bidders, Mr. Manager decided to take on the role of a full-on auctioneer, his excitement rising with every rise in price. He counted young Master Ping down, giving him the final chance to raise the bid if he could. Ping was pissed off that he let himself fall into this pit. He knows these broke losers cheering him on don't have the money to spend. Now he's at a crossroads. Although he likes Mengshi, he doesn't like her enough to risk his family's reputation. To make matters worse, Xinguang asked him if he was already out of cash for a measly 30 million yuan meal. As if on cue, Ping's phone vibrated in his pocket. Using the incoming phone call as an excuse, he made his way out of the building, and Xinguang politely sent him off. On the other side of the line was his sister. She noticed that he just spent 20 million and 1 yuan on one transaction and wanted to know what was going on. Annoyed, he refused to explain what he was up to. Ping Zhaozhao doesn't even want to get involved, but their grandpa noticed the transaction too. Hearing that, he felt a chill run down his spine. His cocky act might cost him more than just 20 million at this point. To make matters worse, his sister had already arrived at Shenwei to talk to him in person and check on what was happening. The young master trembled. He didn't know what to do. If Zhao Zhao catches his weakness, his inheritance might be in jeopardy. Xinguang snuck behind him, asking if he'll continue the bidding war. Calling it quits, he turned to his fiancée's broke friends and called them insane for pushing him for a meal worth 20,000 at most. One of the parasites accused him of losing face for the Ping family. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. The young master scolded the red-haired dumbass to shut his broke ass up. The manager tried to calm him down while confirming if he was withdrawing from the bidding war and promised to refund the funds if he was. Shooting a death stare at the manager, he directed the shameless guy to coordinate with his secretary. Xinguang lifted his head, disappointed at his early and boring victory. He really thought he caught a big fish to make massive profits off of, but it didn't even measure up to his last payday. The parasites turned to Mengshi, hoping that she could convince her fiancé to fight back for them. She gritted her teeth, regretting her decision to come to this damned class reunion. Trying one more time, she squeezed closer to the young master and gave her best pitiful act, telling him that this was getting embarrassing. In response, the young master slapped her across the face for dragging him into such a troublesome affair and canceled their engagement right then and there. Looking at her like she was trash, young Master Ping warned her to get as far away from him as possible. She cried and brought up his promises of growing old together, being inseparable until the ends of the earth. Now he's breaking up with her for something as little as 30 million. Hearing her call 30 million little nearly made Ping strangle the so-called goddess. He only liked her for her looks in the first place. He just thought their kids would be pretty. He knows she's only after his money too. There's no love here. Growing impatient at the scene unfolding, Xinguang urged the manager to wrap it up and kick everyone out so he could eat in peace. Before young Master Ping exited, he gave one last threatening message to Xinguang not to mess with the Ping family of Sang City. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Ping Zhaozhao entered, asking her brother what he was yapping about. She demanded a thorough explanation as to what happened that day. Zhao Zhao tossed her big brother away and announced that the Ping family would invest 2 billion in Shenwei Hotel and Restaurant. Hearing this outrageous sentence, the parasites figured out that the young miss of the family must have more power than the young master. She also asked the manager to clear the area, as she had some business to discuss with Mr. Hang Xingwang. Finally, the parasite is starting to realize that their former punching bag might actually be a hidden big shot. Some of them were envious and even infuriated. Most of them started to regret offending Xingwang. Seeing the decisive Miss Ping, Xingwang's interest was piqued. For the third time, the Mr. Manager politely asked the parasites to vacate the premises so the rich people could talk. Before exiting, Miss Ping warned her brother that their grandpa was waiting for him back home. Deducing what that might mean, the parasites averted their gaze from the show-off young master. Meng Shi tried to salvage the situation, running after her now ex-fiancé while profusely apologizing and owning up to her mistakes. Zhao Zhao shot her a venomous glance and warned Lin Mengxi to stop messing with her family if she wanted to keep living peacefully. Afraid of what that threat might mean, the fallen goddess fled in panic. Zhao Zhao looked at her loser elder brother with pity. With a wide smile on his face, Mr. Manager promised to immediately serve a fresh batch of dishes for the esteemed guests. Ignoring him, Miss Ping walked up to Mr. Hang to discuss business. Inside the private room, Hang Xingwang politely bowed towards Miss Ping. She asked about the gift she sent a while ago, and he thanked her for the thoughtful token. Miss Ping apologized for her older brother's actions. That guy has always been a dumbass, and the family tries to keep him in check, but it's quite hard. She asked Xingwang not to take the threatening words to heart, as the Ping family would never use their position to bully others. Miss Ping didn't come by to create conflict. She just wanted to stop her older brother from damaging the family's reputation. For Xingwang's inconvenience, she promised to make things right someday. After pouring herself some red wine, she gracefully drank the whole glass. Being neighborly, Xingwang dismissed the whole thing and asked what business she had with him. Miss Ping confessed that the business talk was just an excuse to get everyone out politely. But just to be safe, they should stay in the private room for about 2 hours before leaving. Xingwang was dumbfounded to hear that they would just sit here. This girl doesn't play by conventional rules at all. She then urged him to eat up. He spent an exorbitant amount for the meal after all. Miss Ping doesn't want to interrupt his lunchtime, so she'll just sit. Not minding her presence, Hang Xingwang started digging into the plates upon plates of delicious food. Still, he couldn't help but feel odd that Miss Ping was just sitting across the table, watching him stuff his face. Silently judging him, Ping Zhaozhao was quite satisfied with Xingwang's comfortable manner of eating. Halfway through the meal, he started getting weirded out by her odd fascination with his eating. Uncomfortable, he asked if there was really nothing she wanted to talk about. Well, since they just met and they're not familiar, she's not really sure what topic they can get into. The logic makes perfect sense, but being watched wordlessly really feels quite strange. Thankfully, his phone rang at the perfect time to have an excuse to cut the weirdness in the air. Once he answered, Hao Wen's voice sounded. She finished her errands and pulled up to the parking lot downstairs. If she hadn't called, Xingwang was afraid his toes could have dug a hole because of how uncomfortable he felt. Moments later, Hao Wen came up to the second-floor suite at the request of her boss. Upon entering, she cheerfully asked her boss how the meal was. Looking at the rest of the room, she was surprised to see 2 people when this was supposed to be a class reunion. Seeing Hao Wen enter the room, the gentle smile on Miss Ping's face vanished. She immediately excused herself and headed for the door. Xingwang and Hao Wen were both confused as to why she would leave so early after seeing Hao Wen. Once there were just the 2 of them in the room, Hao Wen asked what happened and where the rest of his classmates were. Xingwang explained that today's story is quite a long one. He gave her a rundown of everything that happened, and Hao Wen's takeaway was how ridiculously expensive the meal on the table was. Hearing that it cost her boss 30 million, she felt like it would be wasteful not to finish the whole spread. While she stuffs her face with meat, she dissed Xingwang for treating money like dirt. Xingwang joked that if she stuck with her, she'd see plenty more occasions like this one, so she had better get used to it. As for her earlier business, it was a massive success. She finalized a live streaming merch deal with good commission rates. She has already selected streamers that would focus on merch sales to cash in on the trend. She even connected with some good writers for commercial scripts. Hearing such extensive progress in so little time, Xingwang was convinced that having her as just a streamer before was really underutilizing Hao Wen's talents. She was reminded of her days as a streamer, where she had to endure countless mean comments calling her all sorts of scandalous terms. If it weren't for her family's circumstances, she would not have gone down that career in the first place. She stood up and professed that if it wasn't for Xingwang, she would never have had the opportunity of a lifetime. She's truly grateful that he came to her life and brought light to her darkest days. Xingwang showed her that she could be more than just a flirtatious streamer in the public's eyes. that she could become Sister Hao, who shines in others' hearts. She could become Director Hao, who is respected for her savvy. The big boss assured her that this was just the beginning of a brighter future. Together, they will achieve greatness. And to that, the partners shared a toast. After that tender and genuine moment, Xingwang locked in on the food that cost him a fortune, urging Hao Wen to help him eat everything. A few days later, a sports car that cost over 3 million was parked in front of Hao Wen's building. People admired it from afar, regretting the fact that they couldn't afford such luxury for themselves. A handsome man got out of the car, and the ladies on the streets shot him flirtatious glances. The dude had a dogshit bulky gold chain hanging around his necklace, bro. Playing it off as a coincidence, she greeted Hao Wen as soon as she exited the building. She knew him as Mr. Zhang, and she did not look happy seeing him at all. He's been following her career after leaving Meow Group. Now he's offering to give her a ride anywhere. Without sparing a glance, she refused, asserting that she was busy. Mr. Zhang was persistent. He offered to drive her around to her business commitments, wait outside, and then grab a meal together. She continued to refuse. Zhang is getting irritated. He's been her top fan for so long, and now she's giving him the cold shoulder. He already promised his buddies he'd win her over in a month, but he's getting shut down from the get-go. Pulling up to the side of the road was Hang Xingwang in an electric scooter. He asked Hao Wen who was beside her. She introduced him as Zhang Wencheng, her #1 supporter back in her Meow Group days. Xingwang politely extended his hand and introduced himself as Hao Wen's colleague, but the arrogant bastard treated him like air. Not letting the disrespect ruin his day, Xingwang cheerfully told Hao Wen to hop in the back of his scooter. On that note, she said goodbye to Zhang Wencheng. Bulky Chain Boy looked at the speeding scooter with disdain. He couldn't believe that he was beaten by an electric scooter. His ego was bruised. He drove his expensive sports car for nothing and blamed it on Hao Wen's blindness. It's rare that his sugar mommy is away on a business trip. He only has 2 days of peace, and he refuses to waste it moping. So he picked up the phone and dialed another girl to eat crayfish with. This time, he got his desired response. Meanwhile, Xingwang and Hao Wen traversed the city in the convenience of the scooter, avoiding the heavily congested roads. Sitting at the back, she was in charge of directions towards their destination. Since Xingwang found the extravagant meal the other day boring, he's taking Hao Wen out for some good old plain and simple food. A crayfish feast. Not long after, the two arrived at their journey's end. They ordered a plate of garlic crayfish and a plate of 13-spice crayfish, and Xingwang added some noodles too. Hao Wen gave him a disclaimer that she won't be wearing gloves. She will raw dog this meal to her heart's content and remind Xingwang to suck on the big heads thoroughly. They partnered the tasty crayfish with some liquor and enjoyed each other's company. Suddenly the restaurant door opened, and some familiar faces walked in. It was none other than Chu Xinuo and the hateful Zhang Wencheng. Xinuo immediately turned around and asked Zhang if they could go to another restaurant, but he insisted that this one was the best. When he got in, he saw the reason for Xinuo's reluctance to dine inside. Zhang Wencheng's blood boils upon seeing Hao Wen having what looks like a date with the scooter loser after rejecting his offer. To assuage his anger, he grabbed Xinuo's body and pulled her closer. Ignoring Hao Wen and the loser, he led his date to another table. Zhang Wencheng is already plotting to support other girls and abandoning Hao Wen altogether as if she gives a damn. Xinuo inwardly judged Hao Wen for acting high and mighty, only to latch into a rich guy like Hang Xingwang. She's determined to take her top spot and top fans. With Zhang Wencheng's help, her popularity will surely skyrocket. Hao Wen whispered close to Xingwang, asking if she should remind Chu Xinuo how big a scumbag Zhang Wencheng is. Xingwang thinks everyone has their own destiny and they shouldn't interfere. On the scumbag table, Xinuo acted like an enthusiastic date and offered to peel shrimp for her brother Zhang. He called her a good girl and accepted. And so, Mr. and Miss Scumbag ate their shrimp as if they were 2 fake peas in a pod. Before Zhang Wencheng could swallow the first bite, an all too familiar voice yelling at him made his blood run cold, almost making him choke on the shrimp.